At the end. Great effort. I can see most of your cooking skills. This isn't the best thing I've ever eaten, but you take me to heaven with that. This was no softening of the blow. Mira's ramen was far from the best he'd ever tasted, but it was something he'd actually like to have every day, or at least every morning. A hit, I mean you sound like you know what you're talking about, and the tasting. I was hoping for something like this, but you sound like a real professional food critic, Naruto-kun. She admitted sincerely as Naruto returned to eating his breakfast. I'm very serious when it comes to ramen, Mira. Naruto shrank back. In fact, with thousands of years of experience, he could judge any dish. He could give the best review anyone could get unless they did something new, something he'd never seen before. This was my absolute favorite food in the world when I was young. Ramen means a lot to me. Is this how it is? Mira asked, panting slightly. She hadn't expected this. Did you know that when I was 12, I was this tall because I had ramen for every meal, every day? Naruto explained, raising his hand to a specific height, making Mira gasp. Yep, I ate ramen that much. She couldn't believe that a man who was now over 6 feet tall was that short when he was younger. She guessed they weren't joking when they said ramen was an unhealthy food. However, she couldn't help but wonder where her mother was, because no mother would let her children eat unhealthy food at every meal, every day, like that. She didn't know about her father, because while Mira was fairly certain that Naruto was older than her and Urza, he had become her father's student when she was between 11 and 12 years old, probably almost 2 decades after the day Naruto was born, at least, in her opinion. Did their father abandon them? Did something happen to their mother? Was this the reason Naruto hated his father so much? Did he spend his childhood alone? As Naruto finished his ramen and turned over the desserts, she could only look at him sadly. He must have suffered a lot, perhaps more than any of them. Well, that was delicious, Naruto said as he set down the empty milk glass and sighed in satisfaction. Cooking like this for me every morning, and you'll get more than just tips and praise. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a few thousand jewels, and placed them on the table. For delicious ramen, he said before Mira could come up with any excuse to properly refuse his money. Well, I guess I won't have any choice, but I'll accept this then. Mira laughed and took the money. Thank you, Naruto-kun. No, thank you. The blonde man laughed as he stood up. Do you need help? He asked as Urza picked up the tray with the empty plates. Okay, Naruto-kun. I'll be nice. She laughed and walked away, humming softly. As Naruto's eyes followed Mira as she disappeared back into the kitchen, he had to admit once again that her cooking was truly amazing. With his experience, he could cook even better, but after some time, he had grown bored with his own cooking and preferred to eat other cooks' dishes prepared for him. Sayla didn't know how to cook and it was impossible for him to teach her. She had tried to learn to cook many times in the past, but her attempts usually turned into kitchen disasters, much to her amusement and disappointment at being unable to make her favorite dishes. But she wasn't meant to be a housewife, so he understood and wasn't too bothered by it. There was a woman who could cook ramen better than Mira, and he used to like her cooking as much as he liked everything about her. You found the mission board. A voice broke out of his reverie. Deep in thought, Naruto didn't realize that he had gotten up from his seat and made his way to the other side of the guild, where he stood before a board with some papers mission assignments pinned to it. Turning, he saw that Mira was laughing at him. I'm guessing. Naruto nodded as he turned to head back to the mission council, banishing the thought of a certain scarlet-haired woman from his mind. What do we have? Are you interested in them? Mira asked curiously. As much as I hate to admit it, I'm a member of Fairy Tail. Naruto stated unpleasantly. Mavis Vermilion praised him, and isn't it normal for a mage from a legal guild to undertake assignments? You're right. Mira laughed, nodding her head at the agreement. Well, we don't have that many jobs left, and unfortunately, they're all under-aligned missions, but I hope you can still find something interesting here, so let me know if you decide to take it. I have to register everything. Naruto nodded, making a thoughtful expression as he looked at the mission assignments on the council. Mira wasn't lying when she said they were all underlined on missions, as most of them were BB. The others had probably taken all the good-paying missions and forgotten about the bad ones. I think I'll take this, and you know what, I'll take all of them. Naruto removed everything from the mission board, causing Mira to gasp in surprise. Are you sure? She asked, looking at him as if he were crazy. I mean, this would take an entire team to complete all these missions. Don't worry. Naruto smiled broadly before winking at her. I'm a multi-assignment person, so these are nothing. I can handle them. But Mira still wasn't convinced. Do you need any help? Strauss asked beautifully, I'm sure I can find some time too. Like I said, these are nothing I can't handle. Naruto interrupted with a laugh. You focus on striking various attractive poses in underwear or bikinis, and I'll make sure these missions are completed by the end of the day. I guess I can't change his mind then. Mira shook her head before walking behind a counter and posted the job book. Give me the assignments, please. Naruto handed her the papers and waited patiently for Mira to jot down the details of each mission. However, he omitted the surprise that crossed his face when she glanced at a crank job. This didn't last long, though. Alright, I'm done. Here you go. Mira handed him his mission back. Good luck, Naruto-kun. You're going to need this. She waved her hand, laughing sweetly. I'm going to see you later. Naruto nodded and left the guild. Later might be sooner than you think, Naruto-kun. She giggled foolishly before heading back to work. Master, are you sure you don't need my help? Sayla asked worriedly as she watched him run back from Master and forward between shelves with great speed, carrying many books in his hands. The first mission was very simple. He had to put the books in the Oniba City Library back into their sections and sort them alphabetically. He had Sayla help him sort the books, and while with her curse she could move them to their sections and finish his mission in less than 10 minutes, Naruto decided he didn't want this. He would do most of the work himself. Don't worry, Sayla. Your master can handle this. He just needs to tidy up. Naruto gave his lover servant Aetherius a chuckle before continuing to put the books back in their places. With just a glance, he was able to memorize everything inside the library, so he didn't have to look twice to know where he put the books. They were in the right places. Although it was a very heavy task, this was a very simple job for him, and it reminded him of the time when he was still a completely normal person or a shinobi with superpowers. Either way, this took him back to the good old days. The other one's done, master. Sayla spoke over as she pushed another stack of books forward. Nodding his head in gratitude, Naruto picked them up and quickly sorted them into their sections before placing them neatly back on their shelves. Find something you like, Sayla. Naruto asked when he turned around and saw Sayla looking at some books in front of her. Nothing, master. Sayla shook her head and placed the books on top of each other. Stories written by people are so boring. Even their titles sound ridiculous. Chuckling quietly, Naruto picked up the books she had been looking at and read the titles aloud. The Prince of Olympus. The Dragon Emperor. Silent Night. New Chance of a Second Life. Yes, they sound ridiculous, but they're all good stories. I skimmed them all a few years ago. Naruto said, laughing as he handed them back to Sayla. It's too bad the author has stopped writing. Many fans, including myself, always hoped he'd return to writing someday. Is that so? Sayla asked before the refrain. But he's probably not as well as you are, master. I'm flattered. Naruto smiled broadly, rubbing his head. Now that you mention it, maybe I'll do it again sometime. It's been a while since I published any of my books, after all. After this, they both went back to work and it didn't take long to complete the entire library. The mayor and the librarian were shocked because they hadn't expected Naruto and Sayla to finish the mission so quickly. However, they were pleased and gave Naruto his reward for completing their request. He had no need for the money, so he planned to give it to the guild later. No special feelings or anything of the sort. It was because they looked so miserable and pathetic that he wanted to do something. They were so desperate for money that Naruto could almost imagine himself standing on a table, throwing money around, laughing like a rich arrogant brat, while the fairy tale members slowly crawled across the floor collecting their money and begging for more. We can grab something to eat before heading to our next destination, Naruto said as he glanced at one of the latest mission assignments in his hands, tossing the one he'd just finished behind his shoulder. Two of them were currently walking down the street in Oniba City. Go see Oh well, I wasn't expecting this. A small, smug smile crossed his lips as he saw the address on his last mission. He decided to save it from the last one and hoped his luck would still hold. He had lived long enough to know that everything that happened around him could never be coincidental. What is it, the master? Sayla asked, turning her head to look at him. Nothing. He said, putting the allowances back in his pocket. So, want something to eat? Something you desire should be fine, master. Naruto wasn't surprised by her response. Sayla could eat and enjoy a good meal, but in the end, she had no need to. She only enjoyed eating because her master did. She hated everything about humans, their personalities, their voices, their presence, their magic, and also their ability to seduce their master, in the case of female humans, but their food products were not included. She liked her master's cooking, which was made from human ingredients. She would never admit it aloud, but when her master wasn't the one cooking the food, Sayla always enjoyed something beautiful, finer, and more elegant, just like her. Deep in thought, Sayla didn't see the man coming towards her from the right until he had almost bumped into her as they crossed an alley. He nearly knocked them both to the ground, but Sayla swerved to the right and easily dodged him, keeping her balance on her feet while the stranger fell miserably on his face. Grumbling in annoyance, Sayla glared at him and sneered, "You stupid human, watch where you're going." But he ignored her words and stood up and fled as quickly as possible. Why did you? She snarled and was about to use her curse to take control of his body, but a hand was placed on her shoulder, stopping her. "Sayla, easy, he's been careful." She was quite curious about her master's words when suddenly another person sprinted out of the alley and took a right turn with abnormal speed, chasing after the man who looked like he was escaping for his life. This, however, was a young woman carrying a sheathed katana in her hand. She ran fast as Urza could move in her flight armor, but Naruto's eyes easily caught up to her, and in an instant, he took in all of her features. She was a young, slender, large-framed woman with long, straight black hair that fell to the middle of her back and was cut in the traditional princess style, something he hadn't seen much of lately. She wore an elaborate jacket with gold lining and a large collar, which was open to reveal a collared shirt and the red bow underneath. The cuffs of this jacket were tucked into a pair of high, wrist-length white gloves. On her legs, she wore a pair of black tights tucked into knee-high boots and sitting under a short ruffled white skirt. She also wore a white headband with a white ribbon tied in a bow down the middle, pointing straight up. She looked at him in a strangely familiar way, and because of which, it didn't take him long to remember her. She had grown up, but that hairstyle and headband were unmistakable. She was from the town of Rosemary. As the girl passed them, unconsciously, she turned and looked at Naruto. Her impassive eyes widened for a second, but the surprise on her face didn't last long before she continued her pursuit of her target, whom they tackled down to earth and restrained with ropes less than 15 seconds later. "Are you alright, master?" Sayla asked when she saw the look on his face. "It's nothing, really. Come on, go outside." Naruto shook his head and turned to walk away. Sayla quickly followed him, rather confused by the mysterious laugh on his face. A small world, he thought as he gazed at the sky. With everything that had happened lately, it seemed the past was catching up faster than he'd expected. But for how long, he could only wonder. How long would it take for the past to catch up with him, and how long for it to completely disappear from his life? Years. Decades. Centuries. As an immortal, Naruto could only move forward and let it pass behind him. He mustn't cling to the past. He had to eagerly await the future and forget everything that couldn't last longer than a century or so. This didn't take them, or at least Naruto, long to complete the next 4 mission assignments. From basic farming and road fixing to escorting a child to their grandparents in another town and washing dishes at a local restaurant, Naruto finished them all without asking a question and to the best of his ability. Sayla proved her worth whenever he asked her to help, but this didn't mean he liked what she did, simply because she did it for the kind of person she hated the most. Sayla didn't make any negative comments, but even if she did, she wouldn't say them to his face, knowing her master would be displeased with her choice of words. The Aetherius thought those jobs were a complete waste of time and considered Tartarus's missions for her to be far more exciting. But in the end, those missions involved killing dozens, maybe hundreds, of people at once, something Sayla could greatly enjoy and derive immense pleasure from doing. "I think we're here," Naruto finally said after 10 minutes of travel, glancing between the building in front of them and the sheet of paper in his hand to make sure he'd gone to the right place, which was pretty unnecessary because there was a massive panel with the words "The Sorcerer's Studio" written across the middle. "Hey. Sayla." He then turned around at the demon standing next to him, who was drawing quite a bit of attention from the citizens because of his horns. "Yes, master." The hateful glare she had for the people around her immediately disappeared when she turned around. "This is the last one, so why don't you let me take care of this one alone?" He created a replica, causing many people to stare at him in surprise. Since there was Shinentai, thought projection, a type of magic that allowed users to create a physical copy of their bodies, no one questioned how he was able to do this. "My replica will accompany you home and take care of you," he said, gesturing his hand to his replica, which smiled broadly in response. "Are you sure, master?" Sayla asked uncertainly. "I'm pretty sure." Naruto nodded. "They're just going home and having fun with him, but the day is still young, so don't get carried away. I'll be home as soon as possible, okay?" Sayla nodded and Naruto turned to her. "You're taking care of her, right? You know better than this, boss." His replica laughed and offered Sayla his hand. "Are you coming with us?" Sayla laughed and took his hand. They both disappeared in a flash later. Shortly after, Naruto approached the entrance, where he was greeted by a man who appeared to be one of the building's guards. Naruto accidentally walked up to him, the mission assignment in hand. "Stop right there, young man." Naruto mused as the guard lifted him by the hand and stood him up with a firm tone. The guard called him young man. He really had no idea, did he? "What are you doing here? State your business." "Fairy tale mission." Naruto replied curtly, handing him the sheet of paper. He briefly held it up to him to make sure it wasn't a fake before looking at Naruto once more. "Fairy tale mage? You don't look like that," he declared, eyeing Naruto up and down. He was tall, but Naruto was taller, and while he couldn't see any muscle because of his clothes, the blonde looked like he could stun a well-built man with a quick flick of his finger, which, actually, he could. His experiences as a bodyguard told him so. And I'm sure as hell I don't want to be like that person. Naruto replied expressionlessly. What are you? Can I come in now? He asked calmly. Well, I'm guessing you're legitimate, the man said with a small grin before handing the paper back. You'll have to go to the principal's office. Just go straight ahead and then follow the signs from there. This isn't something you can skip. He continued, earning a nod from Naruto before stepping aside, Naruto's permission to enter the studio. Following the guard's instructions, it didn't take him long to find the office. Without further delay, he raised a hand. I'm here in response to your request to summon Fairy Tail, Naruto called, knocking on the door. Ah, please come on in. A voice called out cheerfully, and Naruto didn't hesitate to do so, opening the door and stepping inside. He found the director, who was a short elderly man with gray hair. He also had a beard and wore a blue uniform with the Sorcerer magazine symbol on his chest. Please show me the mission request. It's just for precaution, of course, he requested, extending his hand. Naruto gave it to him. The principal glanced at it quickly before returning it, then laughed at Naruto in a friendly manner. My name is Takagi Sachi. I am the director of the Sorcerer Studio. The man greeted in a friendly manner before offering Naruto his hand. Naruto. Naruto nodded, taking the man's hand and shaking it. Only Naruto? You don't have to know the rest, Naruto calmly replied. I shouldn't make friends here. This made the principal look at him strangely, but he shrugged it off. I guess so anyway, thank you for answering this request so quickly. Takagi laughed. We're in need of some extra help, you see. Han, where do you need me? Naruto asked, putting his hands in his pockets as he leaned back and looked around. Please follow me. Nodding, the old director trudged past his desk and left his seat. Naruto followed the argument, remaining silent the entire time. He had been to many studios. Being one of the greatest heroes of his era had its advantages. Koyuki Kazuhana, the daimyo of the Land of Snow and a famous actress of her time, had personally requested that he play a role in some of her films. Being a well-trained shinobi, acting seemed second nature to him, so he had performed his roles with ease, including a part in the film adaptation of Icha Icha Paradise, much to Hinata's displeasure. Admiring my amazing study, young man. Naruto heard the man's request. Yes. The immortal shinobi nodded, looking around the lobby they were traveling through. They found many workers and some models. Being a friendly director, he seemed to like Takagi very much. Miranane-chan is not his guildmate. Yes, it's her. Naruto answered before he could even ask, she's here, right? Of course, Mirahin-chan only returned an hour ago. She used to be our top model until that terrible accident took her away for 7 years. The man said solemnly, but immediately improved his tone as he continued, we're so pleased that she's decided to return. Her fans will be delighted to see her on the front page of the weekly Sorcerer magazine again. After passing through 2 main corridors, 2 of them arrived at the studio's photography area. The space was large, with many lights, cameras, and large magical backdrops on the carpets that could be changed into whatever the photographers desired for their photos, all of which was presented directly in front of the cameras. The team was present, and Naruto's entertainment and the models' enjoyment were immense. They stood all around the venue, directing each other or posing for photos, wearing everything from the most fantastical outfits to revealing lingerie and swimwear. They were young and beautiful, no doubt about it, and some were incredibly attractive, while others were simply cute and adorable in their own right. Some, however, managed to stand out more than others, simply because their beauty was more radiant. One of them was a slender young woman of average height and weight, yet she possessed an exceptionally curvaceous Hercules figure. She had long, wavy, flowing blonde hair, gathered at the back of her head and tied in a ponytail that reached down to her mid-back, with 2 short bangs framing her face, and a decorative flower with large petals adorning the right side of her head, above her right ear. Her face was soft in shape, and she had large, light blue eyes with long eyelashes and full lips, which were covered in light pink lipstick. She wore a revealing 2-piece bikini that did nothing but showcase her stunning figure. He recognized her instantly. After all, how could he not when he read the Sorcerer's magazine every Wednesday? Her name was Jenny Reelite, a blue Pegasus mage. She was the most famous supermodel and the current Miss Fiore. She looked like she was taking a picture of herself shooting. Ahem. The director cleared his throat, requesting the attention of the models and photographers from the studio. Please gather over here. They promptly did as he said, gathering around Naruto and Takagi. Naruto, however, soon found himself the center of attention for the models as they all looked at him and began whispering to one another, giggling foolishly with excitement. Alright everyone, this is Naruto. He's from Fairy Tail, and he'll be our helper today. Hello. Naruto-san Naruto-kun. They greeted him. The models greeted him amicably. "Hello." Naruto greeted them properly before letting out a charming laugh and lowering his head slightly. "How are you doing, ladies?" The girls giggled foolishly and laughed at him in return. Naruto stood calmly. He had grown accustomed to this kind of attention a very, very long time ago. "Now, Naruto, you're going to do exactly what they tell you to do, okay?" Takagi said, and Naruto nodded his head. "As long as there's no funny business, I'll do it," the immortal shinobi said, making the models groan silently in disappointment. "If you need help, feel free to ask. I didn't expect Mage to accept this mission request on his own, but again, I'll pay you well at the end of the day, so work hard and keep those laughs off your faces, okay?" The blonde man nodded his head again as the director signaled everyone to return to their jobs. "Naruto-kun." As soon as they were far away, Naruto felt someone's hand on his shoulder. Turning his head and glancing down, he saw the beautiful Murahin laughing at him. She had put on light makeup, which only enhanced her beauty and made her look much more mature, as she always had an aura of innocent beauty radiating around her. She was wearing a bathrobe, which covered most of her voluptuous figure, but he was certain that regardless of what she wore underneath, Naruto was sure as hell that she was extremely attractive. "So, you really did it." She gave him a bright laugh, something that could brighten up even the darkest day. "Did you think otherwise?" Naruto asked, laughing jokingly. "Never." Mira shook her head, laughing sweetly. "Anyway, you were able to complete 4 missions in one morning alone. How did you do it?" "I told you, right? I'm a multi-assignment person." Naruto smiled smugly, making Mira giggle. "Pretty much about me. As for you? Anything yet?" "You mean my shot?" "Not yet, but you're in luck because next is my turn." The white-haired model replied, "So make sure you don't miss it, okay?" She winked, making Naruto chuckle quietly. "It's been a while, hasn't it, Mira?" A voice came from him and Naruto turned to see Jenny Realite standing with her hand on her hip just 2 feet away from him and Mira. The girl was laughing rather confidently. "Jenny." Mira chirped happily as she clasped her hands and tilted her head to the side. "It really has been a while. I'm so glad to find you again." "Please, the pleasure is all mine." Jenny laughed, closing her eyes for a moment before continuing, looking at Naruto. "Why don't you introduce us? I don't think I've ever seen or even heard of him before." "Oh yeah, this is Naruto. He's a fairy tale mage just like me." She introduced him and Naruto chuckled. "He just joined the guild a day ago." "Is this so?" She extended her hand in a friendly manner, laughing softly. "I'm Jenny Realite. I'm sure you've heard of me, Naruto-san." "Of course, how could I not? You're the famous Miss Fiori X791s, aren't you?" Naruto shook his hand, which was soft and much smaller than his. To be able to find 2 incredibly beautiful and attractive ladies on the same day and at the same time like this, I'm in luck, aren't I? "Ara, it's very nice of you to say that, Naruto-kun." Mira blushed and giggled softly, while Jenny laughed and nodded her head in approval. "Although, I'm sure Jenny is prettier than I am. She is the current Miss Fiori, after all." "You shouldn't say this, Mira. You're the one who was considered a senior model." Jenny smiled contentedly, tossing her hair behind her back. "You haven't aged in 7 years, so you're still the same 19-year-old you were. I wouldn't be surprised if you managed to climb to the top again." "Ara, it's very nice of you to say tan, Jenny." Mira laughed sweetly, resting her cheek on her hand. It was as clear as day to Naruto that while Mira viewed Jenny just as she viewed everyone around her, the older model didn't share the same hospitality and saw the now younger woman as competition, almost a threat. He wasn't surprised, because 7 years ago Mira had been considered Fiori's top model, topping the Mage Would You Like to Be Their Girlfriend list, and the only reason Jenny was able to rise to the top of Miss Fiori and make it was due to Mira's absence. A little while after this, Naruto went to work. It turned out there wasn't much to do, and his requests were easy to carry out. Dusting the mattresses, setting up the lights, carrying the cameras, bringing the models into the water much to his liking. The list went on and on. It was no surprise that this was just a crank mission. "Alright, time to work your magic, Mira-chan." A photographer exclaimed excitedly, catching Naruto's attention. Immediately, the immortal shinobi turned his head to the side and saw Mira walking onto the stage, tying the belt around her waist. Their eyes met and Mira winked playfully before finally letting the bathrobe fall to the floor. If Naruto didn't have so much experience with women, he'd probably be panting like an idiot. The only garment Murahin Strauss wore was a white sleeveless sweater hanging just below her ankle. The sweater had a halter neck in the shape of a silver choker, the strings of which fell to a small point on her back. The most revealing feature, however, was her back, which failed completely. The gap was so low that the upper half of her ankle and her buttocks were fully visible, and so wide this reached all the way to the front, exposing a portion of her incredibly large breasts. The front and lower half of the sweater still covered the important areas from view, but in the end, her daring sweater revealed so much and left very little to the imagination. The combination of Marahin Strauss and such an erotic sweater was truly deadly. Many virgins were going to die next Wednesday. Also, he could almost imagine his lovely Sayla wearing similar team clothes. It seemed Mira took her deal to heart because Naruto was treated to one of the most erotic photoshoots he'd ever seen. Fairy Tail's performance was truly professional, as she could shift and change between poses in under 3 seconds. The photographers didn't have to do anything other than capture every angle with their cameras, as Mira had completely taken over the moment the photoshoot began. Naruto wasn't a man in the business, but he could see that everything she did, every pose she struck, was absolutely perfect and truly mind-blowing. By the end of the day, Naruto had his eyes cleaned. "Good morning, Naruto-kun." When he walked into the guild the next morning, Mira immediately came to greet him with her usual 1000-watt laugh and cheerful expression. "Have you had breakfast? Would you like anything?" she asked happily, her motormouth not stopping for a second. "Something you have in mind should be fine." Covering up her usual response, Mira nodded her head before running off into the kitchen, happily humming. Naruto couldn't help but chuckle softly at this before the title reached Lucy's table, the only place where there wasn't a fight. Star Mage was reading the tale of a completely impetuous shinobi very seriously. "I'll take this if you enjoy what you read." Naruto took his seat in the chair in front of Lucy and said with a laugh. "The tea, this is incredible, are you sure it was sold incorrectly?" Looking at him, Lucy could only ask in amazement. "Well, you could say that around my godfather's time everyone thought of it as a joke." Naruto chuckled quietly. "It really was a long time ago and people's points of view change every day." Lucy nodded her head in understanding. "So, what are you all talking about?" he asked, looking at the group of mag who were arguing about something. "Ah, they're arguing about whether Fairy Tail should really participate in this year's Grand Magic Games." The blonde boy replied, laughing nervously. "Oh yes, I heard about that event." Naruto nodded his head as he rested his chin on his hand. "You want to reach the top in a short amount of time? Apparently, this is the only way right now." With a quiet laugh, Naruto leaned back precariously and put his feet up on the table. This was just going to be another day at Fairy Tail, wasn't it? Makarov, who was sitting on a table, asked, scratching his chin, "But do you think you can win with your magic power as it is now?" "Yes, of course, we will." Mikao agreed, willing to lead the opposing idea team. However, his adopted son only knew how to inspire the third guild master. "If we win, the guild gets the 30 million jewel prize." "Let's go." Makarov said with a laugh, "I'll drive," and his finger pointed to the ceiling. "Amo. It's impossible. There's Blue Pegasus and the Lamia scale. And Sabretooth will be there too. And in the past, we always came in last. Don't go bragging about this." Elfman shook his head while his little sister, Lysana, could only laugh foolishly. "Don't leave that nuisance to yourself, we'll be fine." Makarov smiled broadly and pierced the air quickly. "Alright. I'm full on." Natsu, who had completely healed back into form, screamed with fire coming from his mouth, causing other mag to back away in fear. "He's lost it." "When does this happen?" Natsu asked, turning his face to Romeo. "In 3 months." "Gosh. This is a lot of work for us to get into shape." Natsu grinned broadly and pierced his palm with a fiery fist. Fairy Tail will once again be the #1 guild in Fiori. Other members of Fairy Tail nodded their heads with confident laughter, believing they could win this game to reclaim their guild's #1 spot, even if others refused to participate. "That's right." He slammed his fist together and looked around for a specific target. It didn't take him long to do so. "Yo, Naruto." "What is it, the brat?" Naruto asked, not bothering to look at him. "Why don't you do it? Tell me out." The blonde interrupted sharply. He didn't even have to think about it to come up with that answer to Natsu's incoming question. "Hey. I haven't finished it yet." The Fire Dragon Slayer yelled in frustration. "Then continue." Naruto taunted. "But you already knew my answer." "Well then, why don't you join us in the magnificent magic game?" he asked excitedly, a broad laugh spreading across his face. "No." Naruto simply replied, "Why should I get involved in something that's going to be a complete waste of my time?" "Because you are a Fairy Tail mage." Praise Mavis Vermilionov. He stopped when he saw Urza standing beside him, a puzzled expression on her face. "Can I help you?" he asked, sideways. The guild immediately fell silent as they looked at each other. "I want to ask a favor," Urza said firmly, placing both hands behind her back. She waited until Naruto had nodded his head before continuing, "Could Master Kunoichi's armor help me?" "I don't think I understand what you're trying to say, Urza." Naruto looked away. "I can use the new joke, but I don't make the new joke armor. Since I don't fight with armor, how can I help you master one?" "It's because the Kunoichi armor is different. It's unique, Urza explained. It's not about the armor's powers. She recalled the words her teacher had said. It's all about my skills as a ninja. Minato-sensei said that I could only use the kunoichi armor to its fullest potential if I improved my skills as a kunoichi. She lowered her head. You're the only one who can help me become a true ninja. Didn't my elder train him to use that armor when he gave it to him? How did he do it? Call it my instinct. Only my old man would think of something like that. Naruto said immediately before Urza could get confused. Now, answer my question. He did, but I spent more time training with swords and spears than with kunai and shuriken. Urza nodded her head, looking away sheepishly before turning to look at herself hopefully. So. Why should I? You defeated me, right? Naruto asked, pointing to the spot where Urza had cut him. You're letting me win, right? His question caused the entire guild, except for Makarov, to gasp in surprise. And why do you think I let him win? He asked, his tone becoming much softer. Ninjutsu. You're a ninja like your father, but you didn't use any of them, she replied. The others stared at her in confusion. Only Natsu and Fellas had excited laughter on their faces. If you had used them, I wouldn't stand a chance. She then added, furthermore, you hit Natsu with a speed my eyes couldn't follow. The kunoichi armor grants me speed, but I'm nowhere near as fast as you. You could easily dodge my attack with half the speed you used against Natsu, but you didn't. Naruto looked at her for a second before the corner of his lips curved above her in a small, satisfied smile. Great observation. You've earned a flower circle for this. Naruto clapped his hands, making Urza raise an eyebrow. Anyway, why did it make you think I could use ninjutsu? About Tenryu, you position your hands like this. She clasped her hands together. I recognized it immediately. Time began to change after that, so unless you're using magic that can manipulate time, I'm pretty sure this is ninjutsu. A laugh then came to her face as she said, and yes, this is Minato-sensei teaching me how to take note of everything around me. Can you please stop mentioning my old man? Naruto sighed, making Urza chuckle. Anyway, I think I've got the answer to your request. Urza looked at him hopefully, a slow smile spreading across her face. She could finally become what her teacher had wished for her to be, a mage, to be specific, a witch, which had always been her dream since she was young. The answer is no. And he crushed it just like this. End of chapter 6. Chapter 7. The woman had told him that he looked strangely peaceful and more human when he slept, but Naruto had never been an early riser and he himself knew that better than anyone. So he had long since decided that he would not sleep unless he felt really, really sleepy and tired, something that would never happen because of his unholy stamina, which was a perk of being an immortal, and spend his time doing something else, something truly valuable to the night's time, and last quite a long time to take it all the way to morning, when he could start yet another day as someone who would live forever. Phew. Standing in his kitchen wearing only his orange sweatpants, Naruto sighed after he drank a cup of water. It was 4 in the morning. At this moment, he was alone at home, and since Sayla hadn't been there with him last night, Naruto had spent the entire evening quickly reading some of Lucy's novels, which he had found quite interesting. Placing the empty cup of water on the table, Naruto moved to the magic coffee machine standing on the counter on the other side of the kitchen so he could brew a cup of coffee for himself. Normally, Sayla would be the one to do it for him. She might not be as good at cooking, but she had no problem using a magic machine to make her master a cup of bitter water, as she had decided to call it. Filling his mug with the hot liquid, Naruto made a beeline from the kitchen, taking a book with him from the living room, and headed for the front door of his house. Quickening his pace before closing the door behind him, the immortal shinobi moved to settle into the rocking chair on his left. Placing both feet on the footrest in front of him, Naruto leaned his back against the chair's backrest and unfolded the newspaper before taking a sip of coffee from the mug in his right hand. This was a beautiful morning. The sun was slowly rising over the horizon, its rays gently caressing the immortal's face and body as he sat in his chair in front of a beach house that was quite simple, but had everything he needed, rocking him back and forth, reading a book and enjoying a cup of hot coffee, even though he had no need of it in the morning, waiting for the girl he liked with all his heart to return so they could have yet another day together, peacefully and quietly. He could never ask for anything more than this. His mind drifted to Sayla, and he couldn't help but wonder what she was doing at this moment. She had left last night to attend a very important guild meeting. Before she left, Sayla had also promised to return as soon as possible. Even though she had spent the past 7 years with him, she was still an active member of Tartarus, remaining one of its strongest demons. Naruto felt no need to completely remove her from his class, the demons with whom she had spent 19 years, so he allowed her to come and visit them at any time. They had never found him, and he had never found them in the person. Or the demon. However, from what he had learned of Sayla, the Aetherius all had a certain amount of respect for him, simply because he was the only one the goddess of the cold moon would bow her head and willingly obey. Even Margir Tartarus, the current master of Tartarus and the leader of the Kyukamen, Kyoka, had never received that kind of respect before. It didn't help that Sayla always spoke very highly of her master whenever anyone asked about him, and they all knew she had no reason to lie to them. To them, she was simply too cold to tell a lie. There was a reason they called their goddess of the cold moon, after all. Speaking of Kyoka, Naruto had to admit that she was a woman who always amused him. For the past 7 years, she hadn't stopped trying to lure Sayla back to her dormitory for Hex. However, heeding her wishes, the Aetherius had decided that from now on, Naruto Uzumaki would only be allowed to touch her hexily and intimately, unless he decided otherwise. She had rightfully rejected every tempting offer from Kyoka, but most of the time Sayla had turned her back on his flirtatious advances, much to the frustration of the green-haired demon. From what he'd learned, Kyoka had been furious, and she had begun to feel an intense amount of jealousy toward him, which was as clear as day to Sayla, who recounted every moment she had returned to his side. Luckily, Kyoka was a proud demon and had too much respect for Sayla to force herself on his girl. This was very lucky for her because Naruto wouldn't hesitate to tear his book to pieces and burn it to ashes if she did this, even if she was the one directly responsible for the positive and also some negative, like hatred towards humans and many disgusting tongues, changes in Sayla. So, more or less, she had earned a little of his respect and would like to meet him someday. Naruto yawned loudly as he flipped the page to the next chapter. Lucy had read many interesting novels the night before, but the one in his hands was rather dull. It was well written, but the plot and characters were quite simple and straightforward, with only a few minor interesting touches. Turning the book over to look at the publication date on the back cover, Naruto could see that it had been written and published almost 9 years ago, which was nearly 2 years for Lucy, because she had been stuck in the fairy sphere for 7 years. For an author with very little experience like her, this was still a huge achievement. Lucy had the talent to become a great author in the future, as she had improved considerably over the past few months. I want to ask you a favor. Can you help me, Master Kunoichi of the Armor? Thinking about Lucy's work made him think of her, and thinking about her made him think of Fairy Tail, and thinking about Fairy Tail made him think of Urza and her request. His flat refusal had come as a shock to Urza, and she had tried to change his mind. She had tried to challenge him again, but much to the red-haired girl's annoyance and frustration, he had ignored it and gone back to his guild business. Sooner or later, after Urza had realized that her efforts were in vain, she gave up and returned to her desk, sulking in disappointment. This morning, she was going on a 3-month training trip with her team to prepare for the Grand Magic Games, where they would have to fight against some of the best guilds in the Kingdom of Fiori. The event was something he had heard about, but he didn't want to take part, thinking it would be a complete waste of his time. To begin with, he cared very little for Mavis's childish creation and its standing among the mage guilds of Fiori. Something like a Grand Magic tournament would attract a lot of attention, something he always tried to avoid after deciding to live peacefully among humans. There was no one in the Fairy Tail Guild at the moment other than the oldest members, as the younger generation of the guild, who had gathered in groups, had decided to follow Team Natsu's example to prepare for the upcoming tournament, so there was no reason for him to return to that place, at least not anytime soon. Maybe I should take a nap. Naruto muttered as he put the book over his face, shielding his eyes from the rising sun. Reading Lucy's book bored him rather quickly and made him feel truly sleepy. The gentle breezes, the warm temperature, the sounds of the waves. Didn't help either. He hoped that when he opened his eyes again, it would be his favorite demon greeting him. I think the mountain path is this one, Marahin Strauss said after taking a look at the map in her hand. She was currently traveling with her siblings, Lysana and Elfman Strauss, and Kana Alberona. The 4 of them had decided to go to the mountain a few miles from the town of Clover to train. The mountain was famous for its natural beauty, only 2 miles from the beach, but it had very rugged terrain. This was a perfect place for training. Are you sure about this? Kana asked as she put her hands on her hips. We've been walking around like this for 3 hours, you know. She bent down and looked at the map when Mira showed it to her. Well, it seems like we're not lost, but where is that mountain anyway? She asked, looking around and searching for a mountain. They were standing on the beach, which, as they said, led directly to the path on the mountain, but somehow it still seemed nowhere to be found. This can't just disappear, can it? Elfman asked as he, being the real man that he was, carried the heaviest bags for the girls. Perhaps we should ask the locals. Lysana decided to voice her thoughts clearly, raising her arm to wipe the sweat from her forehead. We won't be able to get everywhere like this. There's a house over there. Marahin pointed to the 2 historic houses not too far from them. I'll go. Ask for directions, and the guys will be waiting here. The 3 nodded and stood waiting as Mira walked over to the house, waiting for the owners. Even before she reached the house, she had seen a shirtless man asleep in a rocking chair in front of it. He had a book covering his face, blocking the sun's rays and his view. Laughing with relief, Mira climbed onto the threshold and approached him as carefully as she could so as not to frighten him. As a supermodel in the business, just by looking at his torso, Mira could tell he must be one of the most attractive men she had ever seen. He was tall and bucking ripped, there was no better word to describe it, with lean firm muscles and well-defined 8-pack abs that gave her the impression they were chiseled from diamonds and when compressed over his frame, giving him a look that screamed incredible attractiveness, immense power, and speed, something his brother, Elfman, probably couldn't match due to the bulky sizes of his muscles. Swallowing heavily, Mira forced her eyes away from his shirtless body. She was blushing almost uncontrollably. Her face was as red as her friend's hair and hot, so hot it could burn. Staring like that for another second and she'd surely die of blood loss. Sighing calmly, Mira reached out and placed her hand on his shoulder, shaking him gently. "Excuse me, sir," Mira laughed as he tugged lightly and began to move around. The sudden movements caused the book to slip from her face and fall to the ground. And Mirahin Strauss found herself staring directly at Naruto Uzumaki. "Who is she?" Naruto asked as he blinked his eyes several times to clear his vision, before slightly raising an eyebrow when he saw the familiar long, wavy gray hair, large blue eyes, beautiful face, and voluptuous curvy body with very large breasts that could unequivocally only belong to a woman. "Look. Naruto-kun. What are you doing here?" she asked, trying her best not to laugh. Should she expect anything less from him? "This is my house." Naruto stood up, towering over Mira, and pointed his thumb at the house. "Really? You live here?" Mira asked in surprise. "But isn't this place like a few hundred miles away from Magnolia?" The station opened at 5 in the morning, but he was always there at 6. There was no road he could get there on time. "I like to calculate in the morning," Naruto replied simply, smiling openly in a charming way as he crossed his weapons over his chest. "I can see this." Mira laughed foolishly and carefully bit the right side of her lower lip when she found herself looking at his shirtless form again. "You should take a picture, this would last longer." He tugged at her hair, snapping her out of her thoughts. "I'll take it. Do you like what you see?" "How?" he asked, and Mira nodded her head with a soft, silly laugh. Unlike a certain someone, she wasn't shy enough and had too many posts to admit what she felt about the super hot new guy in the guild. "So what are you doing here? You couldn't possibly find out about this place, could you?" Knowing her luck, she could. "Well, we hope you can show us the way to the mountain." "Us?" "My siblings and Kana." She gestured with her hand and Naruto turned to look in that direction. He could see Lysana and Elfman, Mira's younger brother and sister, as well as Kana Alberona, Gilder Clive's daughter, who had left the guild the day before to pursue her 100-year-old mission. "We're on our way to the mountain to train, but we can't find it anywhere." She showed him the map and pointed to a specific location, which Naruto quickly recognized. "Well, nothing surprising why you can't find it." Naruto nodded, the action of smiling openly. "Why?" Mira asked, confused. "It's because that mountain is mine." "So, you own an island, and now you own a mountain," Kana said playfully as she gulped down a mouthful of beer. Unlike the Strauss brothers, Naruto had chosen to serve his beer instead of tea, much to his delight. "Is there anything else you own?" "Just the island and the mountain." Naruto, fully clothed, said as he took a seat on the solitary sofa in his living room. "You might not know this, but they call it Mayaboku, the mountain of stupefaction." He then added before any of them could ask, "And no, this didn't belong to my ancestors. I was given ownership of the mountain by the leaders before he passed away. There was no need for them to know more than this." I see that Mira nodded her head slowly. "But why did you hide it away?" Lysana spoke up, raising her hand. "The tourists came every year, and let me tell you, visiting sites and camping are fine, but they didn't come to Mount Mayaboku with pure intentions." Naruto stated before continuing, "They destroyed lakes and rivers with their waste and littered the land with garbage, which took me hours to collect every day." Naruto replied coldly, clasping his hands together in front of his face. "When they started chasing wild animals for sport and cutting down trees to make houses and things, I couldn't take it anymore, so I hid this place away to prevent them from coming back." He shrank back, his expression softening only slightly. "You guys should have read the newspapers before coming here, you know. Keeping track of the world's progress is very important." Team Mira nodded. He was right. It was very important, Naruto said. The article about the mountain's disappearance had been on the front pages of Sorcerer magazine X788 for almost 2 months before the Magic Council shut it down because even those old geezers couldn't find it. This caused Mira and the others to gasp in shock. They already knew he hadn't been to the island for 7 years, so they weren't surprised about the year. It's very similar to Tenru Island. Unless you know the way around like the back of your hand, not even the 4 strongest magic saints can find or enter the mountain once the magical barriers around it have been connected. It was he who had created those barriers, but of course, they didn't need to know. Well, Mira laughed nervously as she turned to look at her team. I guess they can't help you. We'll just have to pick a different place to train then. Yes, Lysana said, and Elfman nodded in agreement. Condemn 3 hours of nothing. Kana sighed longingly as she drank another cup of beer. If you'd like, I can show you some good positions for training, Naruto offered, making their eyes widen in surprise. There's a forest not too far from here. I train there every morning. Really? Mira's expression immediately improved over thank you, Naruto-kun. She lowered her head gratefully, laughing sweetly at him. But of course, you'll have to make sure you keep the place exactly as it always was, or I'll kick you out and make sure you can't train for anything. I've heard that you fairy tale mages have a tendency to destroy everything in your path the moment you use your magic, so you'd better watch yourself there. He said, pointing his hand at them. Mira and his team could only laugh nervously. I've never had much tolerance for ecologically destructive behavior. Don't worry, Naruto-kun. We'll make sure to remember this. Mira laughed. She then had a brilliant idea, which she didn't hesitate to say, why don't you join us? Junction what? Naruto asked inhumanely. Education, what else? The beautiful model replied intensely. While her brothers and Kana looked at her in surprise, Naruto didn't seem to share the same kind of expression. We really can use your help, you know. What makes you think I'll train you? Naruto asked, leaning forward. Don't you remember that I? No, you got it wrong. I don't want you to train me, Naruto-kun. Mira interrupted, shaking her head. I want you to train with me, she quickly added, and my brothers and Kana, of course. She then continued before he could say anything, you said you trained there every morning, right? Unless you have something else to do, which I highly doubt you do, Naruto glared at her, but Mira kept laughing. Why don't you train with us instead of training alone? Who said he trained alone? Furthermore, you can keep a close eye on us to make sure we don't by chance destroy anything. Naruto made a thoughtful expression after hearing this. Should he train with them? For starters, Mira wasn't Urza, and she didn't want him training her either, Akka wasting his time around her. However, they probably couldn't keep Naruto up, unlike Sayla, who had already become accustomed to being raised by her master. But it's just like she said, it's not like he had something else to do in the morning. So, how are we going to do this? Naruto asked the 4 mages who were standing in front of him, their hands in their pockets. Usually, he would start with some regular exercises, like 1,000 push-ups, while Sayla sat on his back, 1,500 handstands around the forest as fast as he could, while balancing his cute little demon on his feet. Nothing too serious. We'd like to test our strength against you first. Naruto nodded. He wasn't surprised. From there, we'll see what we need to do to become stronger. So I'm your training dummy? Immortal Shinobi crossed his weapons over his chest. So much for training with me. He said sarcastically. Relax, Naruto-kun, I promise we'll go easy on you. Mira laughed foolishly, waving her hands around in embarrassment, but all 5 of them knew it was Naruto who would have to go easy on them. I'll try my luck with him first if you don't mind, Kana said, smiling broadly as she took a step forward. She already had her magic cards in her hands. Mira nodded her head and took a few steps back from her brothers, giving Naruto and Kana some space. Now Naruto, this is just a mask, but I want you to fight me seriously, okay? Ready? Naruto ignored her request, looking at Kana, who smiled contentedly in response. Then begin. Kana raised her cards and was about to throw them, then suddenly they vanished from her hands, and Fairy's daughter, the Ace of Tai, found Naruto standing directly in front of her, a kunai pointed at the spot between her eyes. And you're dead, Naruto declared impassively. Her cards were pinned to the tree behind her by Shuriken, which had been summoned and thrown with great accuracy and speed, faster than she could blink. The W-wah. Kana stuttered in the shock. She took a step back and immediately fell onto her end because her legs had become too weak to move. Unfortunate, Naruto chuckled quietly in embarrassment as he took the kunai back and offered his hand to Kana. It's just so you know that you can't train with me when I'm serious. F for true? Kana asked, impressed. She took his hand and let him throw it at her feet. This is a bad idea. Don't worry, I'll try to control myself next time. For the next 2 hours, Naruto trained with Kana, Lysana, and then Elfman. He let Kana use every card in her arsenal, but he didn't allow any of them to hit him. He stopped after Kana ran out of magic cards. He held back a lot while he physically fought Mira's siblings, especially Lysana because she was the weaker of the 2. He easily defeated the younger Strauss in his feline form before giving Elfman a real beating with his intense speed, something he couldn't continue even in his Werediger Assumption form. Ah, I guess this is my turn now, Mira said as she put her cheek to her hand, laughing nervously as she watched Elfman limp away, being helped by Kana and Lysana. He was badly beaten, but overall he was fine because Naruto had only hit hard enough to force him out of his transformations, leaving him completely vulnerable to his fists. Come here. Naruto smiled contentedly, beckoning her to step forward. He was going to enjoy this. He'd heard that Mira was a Class S mage and claimed to be as strong as Urza, so she would undoubtedly put up a better fight than her siblings and friends. Anyway, frankly, she's no good at public speaking. He couldn't handle it. Please go easy on me. Mira laughed sweetly at him before asking for his magic. As the magical purple power blazed brightly around her, making the wind pick up, a large matching circle in magical color appeared above her head, and in a blinding flash of light, Mirahin began to transform. Mira's eyes grew darker and her eyelashes grew longer, with a thin, dark mark in a light zigzag pattern, crossing her right eye vertically. Similar markings were present above her right breast and on both of her bare thighs. Her hair became unruly, defying gravity and sticking up, also becoming curlier, with her front ponytail growing longer. Her ears enlarged, extending backward and gaining pointed edges, while her lips were coated in dark lipstick. Her forearms and hands underwent noticeable changes, becoming covered in scales and each sprouting a fin-like protrusion on its outer side. She also grew a large, stubby tail seemingly made of metal plates or scales, becoming smaller and smaller near its end. Her clothing had also been changed, replaced by a dark, skimpy, one-piece petticoat that revealed her arms and legs and was open at the front and back, exposing most of her belly and a wide cleft. The petticoat had colored gold edges that took on pointed shapes, and its similarly pointed collar was tied around her neck by a fancy cravat. Her shoulders were fastened with thin belts that protruded from her one-piece petticoat, and her feet were covered by matching thigh-high boots with high heels, which were decorated with light ornaments on their upper parts, taking the form of serrated blades that pointed downwards on the front of her legs and on the lower parts, corresponding to her ankles and feet. She also donned a pair of gauntlets that covered the backs of her transformed arms. The moment her transformation ended, Mira spread her wings and flew at him in a blurry appearance. She pierced him, but Naruto simply raised his hand and blocked her punch without any problem. The force of her punch was released around him much like a shockwave, but Naruto barely felt anything. Well, aren't you a pretty cute little thing?" Naruto remarked, grinning broadly and smugly, clutching his scaly fist in his hand. He'd seen her demon form before, so he wasn't surprised to see such a sweet-looking girl transform into a sinister-looking demon. He certainly had his personality do a complete 180-degree turn as well. He was so damn attractive, he had to admit. "I'm going to enjoy smashing that smug smile right onto your face, Blondie," Mira said with a dark, smug grin and threw another fist at his face, only for Naruto to catch it by his other hand just as easily. "Tough, huh?" Naruto didn't say anything in response. He gripped her right hand tightly and convincingly twisted it, tucking his right arm behind her back and another around her neck. "Ara. Want to put this naughty devil in his place already?" She bent her back slightly, lightly pushing his hips behind her and rubbing him against her crotch. Demon form or not, they had only known each other for 3 days, and yet she was already doing something challenging like this. He just didn't know if it was because he was simply that charming, or he just had that kind of effect on the demeanor, or maybe both. "We'll have plenty of time for this later." Naruto smiled smugly as he tightened his grip around her hands, making her flinch slightly in pain. "Do you want to fight me seriously or not?" He released her, but before she could make a move, he grabbed her tail and spun her around before pulling it off. "Ah no," Mira grunted as she flapped her wings and rebalanced herself in the air. "That's where my dick would go if you didn't fight me seriously," Naruto called out, and despite her best efforts, Mira blushed furiously. Weren't Kana and Lisana much better than her? Demons like to get dirty, right? He asked, smiling with satisfaction. "Charming, aren't you?" Mira remarked before launching herself down like a bullet, emitting a large amount of dark magic from the palms of her hands. The stifling heat had completely vanished from her face, telling him that she had finally gotten serious. As she approached him from above, he calmly assumed a stance, placing one hand behind her back while extending the other forward. "Come. Wow. So good." Normal Mirahin, moaned happily as she took the bottle of cold energy drink from her mouth. "Want some, Naruto-kun?" She asked the man sitting next to her, offering him the bottle. "Take as many as you want, I have plenty at my house." Naruto shook his head, laughing at her. It was midday and the sun was right overhead. Lisana was training with her brother, while Kana was messing around with her cards, leaving Mira only to head over to Naruto. "Thank you," she said, taking another sip before commenting while looking at the sun, "It's so hot," she exclaimed, waving her hand rapidly beside her face to get some fresh air. She was sweating profusely, and the long-sleeved shirt she was wearing clung to her body like a second skin. "It's summer, duh." Naruto rolled his eyes, "and you're wearing a dark shirt, so you'll absorb more heat than usual. Doesn't this bother you?" Mira looked at Naruto, who, unlike them, wasn't sweating at all. "This does sometimes." Naruto shrugged. He looked at the bruise on her cheek and couldn't help but ask, "I didn't hit her too hard, did I?" He really did hit her hard because anything less would only scratch her demon skin. While it was nowhere near as hard as he normally would have hit her at full strength, it was almost enough to knock her out of her transformation. Don't worry, Naruto-kun. I'm resilient even without my demons. Mira shook her head, then her eyes widened as Naruto placed his hand on her chin. What are you? Her cheeks turned red. The assurance of her pretty face stays quite long. Naruto said and placed his other hand on her cheek for a second before removing both of his hands from her face. There you go. He said, smiling. Mira touched her cheek and her eyes widened as she could feel the bruise the most. How did you do this? She asked in surprise. She was sure this wasn't some kind of healing magic because she couldn't feel anything coming from his hand. I have my own path, Naruto replied with an air of superiority. Is that one of your ninja techniques? Mira asked. Curiosity got the better of her. On one path, that's right. The blonde man nodded his head in response. They're very useful and far more powerful than ordinary magic, but I haven't found much use for them lately. The world is too peaceful now. What do you mean, Naruto-kun? A sweet little thing like you doesn't need to worry about. Naruto chuckled softly, making Mira blush, both because of his laughter and his compliment. Speaking of ninja techniques, you think Urza trains like hell to master them? Mira asked as she turned her head to look at him. Knowing her best friend, she probably wouldn't try to do anything less than that. She can use them too, right? Naruto closed his eyes for a second before answering with a shrug, not at the same level as me, but yes, she can use them, or at least some of them. My old man probably didn't teach her anything beyond the basics, which is just enough for her to use the Kunoichi armor. I see that. Mira nodded her head, looking away. She remained silent for a second before continuing, it really upsets her when you rejected a request like that. Did she throw a tantrum or something? No, she only ate the strawberry cheesecake. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Normally, she'll only eat a small slice, but when she's in a good mood, she'll eat two. When she's angry or sad, she won't eat anything, but when she's upset or stressed, she'll eat a lot of them, maybe enough to make a whole cake when gathered. Mira giggled softly, tugging at the collar of his shirt. Now that Mira had mentioned this, Naruto remembered that Urza always had a slice of strawberry cheesecake in front of her for the rest of the afternoon. He had thought she was on such a bad mood that she didn't want to touch her food, but it seemed he was wrong. He would have to remember that she had high hopes that you would help your Kunoichi master with the armor. She carries it with pride, you know. You seem to know quite a bit about that armor. To tell you the truth, Natsu isn't the only one who's seen Urza wearing that armor. When I was younger, when I was different, I was always getting into fights with Urza, who I considered my rival back then. Sometimes it was just a friendly rivalry, but sometimes we got really physical with each other and then we fought, holding nothing back. They both chuckled softly at that. Sometimes she won, sometimes I won, but whenever Urza put on that armor, she defeated me. I didn't know what it was back then. I thought it wasn't anything special, just another ridiculously revealing armor of hers. It was something he wholeheartedly agreed with. She told me how she felt wearing it. It really is special to her. Are you trying to convince me to train her now? Naruto asked suspiciously, turning his head slightly to the side to look at her. Is it me? Mira gasped slightly before shaking her head. Even if I try, I don't think I can. Besides, she's already left with her team and you're stuck here with this rather small thing, so I guess it's too late now, isn't it? It's never too late for anything, Naruto declared gently as he gazed at the sky. Furthermore, I can find her even if she's halfway across the entire world, so you don't have to worry about it. So you are. The answer is no, I won't train her yet. Naruto interrupted, making Mira pout. But I think I'll come if they raise something. The pout immediately disappeared and was replaced by a sunlight-like laugh. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Mira laughed at him. You're a really good guy. So, you thought I was bad? Naruto asked in feigned disbelief. When you rejected my best friend's request, yes, I did. Mira winked, making Naruto roll his eyes. But being bad isn't always a bad thing, you know how much girls like bad boys. So you're into bad boys? Mira flinched before their arms crossed and her hands reached for the bottom of his shirt. Whoa, what are you doing? He asked in surprise as Mira suddenly yanked him off and ripped the shirt off his body, leaving her in nothing but a white lace bra, which did little to restrain her breasts. This couldn't help that her sweaty body was glowing rather erotically. I'll change, she said innocently. My shirt is soaked, you see. She then looked at him teasingly. You're not that shy. You've already seen me half naked in the studio and on every front page of Sorcerer's magazine. Something like this doesn't bother you, does it? You can do it at my house, you know. Naruto pointed his hand toward his house, stating the obvious. Do you have a problem? Hell no. Naruto shook his head and exclaimed excitedly. For the first time in a while, he smiled openly like an idiot. End of chapter 7. Chapter 8. What? Why not? Marahan Strauss whined playfully when Naruto gave her a very simple answer to her question, something they had given to someone who asked or requested something they didn't like. No. As Naruto crossed his weapons over his chest and glared at the white-haired demon, who was pouting with her hands on her hips, I only have one bedroom. I don't have a spare room for anyone, and I can't leave any of you girls sleeping on the couch, and quite frankly, I don't want to sleep there either, so yes, you can't sleep at my house tonight, sorry. He replied expressionlessly before pointing his finger eastward, there's a town a mile from here, you guys can find some nice hotels there to stay the night. Mira opened her mouth to speak, but Naruto slammed it shut, and you don't expect me to take you there, this doesn't look like you can't find a town in the middle of the night, right? He smirked. Normally, as a gentleman, it's my duty to escort a beautiful young lady like yourself to that town in the middle of the night, Naruto declared, causing Mira to giggle foolishly, but the problem is, I don't want to. Mira had the urge to the palm of her face, but she had expected him to say something like that. How charming of him. Damn it, you're no fun at all. Kana groaned, downing the last bottle of wine in one gulp before sighing eagerly in satisfaction. But damn it, you have some amazing wines there. What's this? Can I have the other one, please? She looked drunk, but obviously not drunk enough to be stunned. This is good. People generally don't make that kind of drink these days, Naruto replied. How Kana found and took the bottle from where he was hiding was totally beyond him. And no, you can't. I want to keep the rest for myself, thank you very much. The immortal shinobi deadpanned, causing Kana to groan in disappointment. The card mage turned and walked away. Well, we'd better get going then, she said to the rest of the team, who nodded their heads in response before they quickly followed her. Are you coming, Mirani? Lysandra asked loudly when she noticed her sister was still standing in front of Naruto. I'll just for a second. She looked at him, before turning to look at Naruto. Well, I guess I'll see him tomorrow morning then. Don't wait impatiently. The blonde man shook his head. I couldn't be around when you come tomorrow. Anyway, a girl can wait, right? The gorgeous supermodel winked before smiling beautifully. Thank you for spending your time training with us today, Naruto-kun. You don't have to mention it. Naruto laughed. I only did it because I had nothing to do today. The reason is everything you want, Naruto-kun. You might put up a tough front, but I can see right through you. Mira laughed foolishly, making Naruto roll his eyes. As if she could do something like that. Well, it's getting late. I think I'd better get going then. Then the safe stays put and doesn't wander around. You don't want to know it's lurking in the middle of the night. You really should take that stick off your donkey, you know. She looked at him, teasing him, making Naruto glare at her. The others are waiting for him there, right? Naruto asked, gesturing his hand towards his teammate. Really, they are. Mira nodded before waving her hand in a wave. Christmas Eve, Naruto-kun. We hope so, I won't get to train with you tomorrow. She winked, giving him a meaningful look before walking away. You too, Mira? Naruto nodded, giving her a small tremor, and waited until Mira and the others had completely disappeared into the night before returning home. He made sure to lock the door with a regular lock and a couple of magical barriers to ensure that no one would be able to disturb him and his night. Taking off his shirt and then his pants, Naruto quietly made his way to the bathroom, which was occupied by a certain Aetherius who had returned that afternoon, but probably didn't want to disturb him while he trained with Mira and his teammates in the forest. The perfect distribution mechanism, he could only think with a sly, satisfied smile as he saw his most beloved she-devil in the world standing in his bathroom, naked, bathing under the shower, facing away from him, soap still clinging to her flawless skin. No matter how many times he'd seen her, and no matter how many years had passed, Sayla's voluptuous figure was a sight that always made his pants feel several sizes too small. He always wondered how Zeref could create someone like Sayla. He'd never seemed that kind of guy to him unless he secretly had a perverted mind, which he doubted he did. After taking a few seconds to admire her amazing backside, Naruto decided to make himself known by opening the washing machine lid and throwing his dirty clothes inside. The sound, of course, startled her, and the Aetherius immediately circled around. But when she realized it was him, Sayla lowered her guard and quickly bowed her head, as she always did to greet him. Welcome back, master. Yes, I'm in the back. Naruto smiled broadly. Did I scare him? Yes, master. I couldn't sense your presence at all. Sayla admitted sincerely because there was no reason for her to lie. Not that she could or would want to when he was her master. Caution was one of her best skills. Even if he wanted to, not even someone with the magic to hear a person's soul and thoughts could know that he was right behind them. Do you mind if I join you? The blonde man asked by accident, but he already knew the answer. Of course, help yourself, master. With permission given, Naruto slipped out of his boxer shorts, tossed his last piece of clothing into the washing machine, and stepped into the shower. Grinning broadly from ear to ear, Naruto grabbed his demon lover by the hip and pulled her toward him for a scorching kiss, which she happily reciprocated, her arms possessively wrapping around his neck. Moving his hands down even further, Naruto groped her cheeks and pulled her even closer. "The master." She moaned as their lips parted, but their tongues had no intention of doing the same. Sayla rolled her hips and pressed her large breasts firmly against his muscular chest. After he had given her another kiss and a playful slap on her right cheek, Naruto pulled away and laughed at her. Me so much for huh?" He teased her, and Sayla just laughed in return. "How was your day, master?" Sayla asked. She was afraid he might be bored without her around to entertain him and keep him company. "Who were the people you spent your time with?" "You saw us." This wasn't a question, as he already knew she'd been there, looking for him while he trained with Mira and the others. She returned home a little while later. "Well, they're the fairy tale people. They're here for education. At first, they wanted to train on Mount Mayaboku, but I wouldn't let them, so they had to train in our education grounds. Since I had nothing else to do, I decided to train with them for a while." He then added, "I guess we'll have to avoid training there for a few months." Sayla nodded in understanding and released him from her grasp when he did. Turning, the Aetherius grabbed the shower gel bottle and squeezed the lotion into his palm. This is the time for her to perform her duty as his servant in the best way possible. One of them makes the demon drive, right? Turning off the shower, Sayla put her hands on her chest and began spreading the gel over her body. "Yes, Mira can possess demons and use their powers." Naruto replied with a nod. "I think her magic is called Soul of Satan." "Satan, then, is a lesser demon. You shouldn't underestimate her, Sayla. Satan might be a weak demon compared to you, but Mira has plenty of potential to become as powerful as a top-ranking Aetherius." He laughed as Sayla's hand slid down his torso and lower body. "Who knows, she might be able to take you and your powers on in the near future." "I don't think it's possible, but I believe you, master." Sayla looked at him as she finally got her hand on his manhood. Immortal Shinobi could already tell she was going to waste her time there, which didn't bother her at all. The others are much weaker compared to her, it seems. "That's right." Naruto nodded, sighing in satisfaction as Sayla gently stroked his erection, fondling his balls with her other hand. "And the Dark Guilds consider them a thorn in their side, unbelievable." Naruto couldn't help but smirk at this. No surprise when Sayla said it so rudely. Demons as powerful as her had never had much respect for humans, especially not for their magic. Well, there's a reason they're a force to be reckoned with. They destroyed two of the most powerful Dark Guilds after all. Naruto laughed. Sayla had finally removed her hands from his rock-hard member and moved them down to his thighs and legs. "Anyway, enough about them and me. How was your day, Sayla? Did the meeting go well?" "I had a good day, master." Sayla laughed as she got up and turned on the shower, allowing the water to wash the soap and lotion off her master's body, and the meeting went well. "Something important." Considering this, they were the Dark Guild, whose members consisted of the creations of a wizard who wanted to destroy the world. Naruto believed he should expect something like the end of the world. "Not really." The demonstrator shook her head. "We were only talking about the future of Tartarus. I think Margir-sama and Kyoka-sama are planning something big." She then continued, much to his surprise, "They're also planning to remove me from the Kyuukemen." She had to admit that she was offended by their decision, but what they said afterward made that feeling disappear immediately. "They said that I would have more time with you, and I didn't have to concern myself with anything other than my innermost desire." "Seriously? They actually do something like that?" Naruto asked in surprise. "Yes, because I've become a part-time member of the guild, and Tartarus has to be managed by the Kyuukemen, 9 demon gates, at any time. Our goals are also different." Sayla paused her work for a moment to continue, "I'm still considered an active member of Tartarus, but I don't have to answer their call if I don't want to." "Well, I guess the medium is more time for the two of us." The beautiful demon nodded his head with a laugh. "So, any ideas that will take its place?" "Not yet, my love." Sayla shook her head. "But I hope Kyoka-sama will let me know because I want to personally make sure this demon is worthy enough to stand in my position." Naruto nodded. "Did Kyoka's oratory try to take it away with her eyes again?" he asked jokingly, making Sayla blush. "Unfortunate you, yes, she did make the master." Sayla nodded. Since she had recounted everything, including Kyoka's flirtatious attempts on him every time she returned from Tartarus, Sayla had no reason to hide anything from him. "We spent the morning talking privately, but she didn't try to use her curse on me like last time. I swear, her ability to enhance physical sensations is annoying as hell. I mean, she can enhance your sense of pleasure so much that a light touch can make you cum, right?" Sayla nodded, having experienced that kind of enhancement many times over nearly 2 decades. Damn, the talk about abusing her power. He raised his hand and cupped her right breast, making Sayla moan before continuing, however, this shows that she can't please you as well as I do, and I have to use her curse to compensate. He stroked Sayla's large breast, feeling its amazing weight and softness in his palm and fingers. Don't you agree? I couldn't agree more, master, Sayla could only manage between moans. Pretty soon, Naruto was completely clean. There you go. I hope you're pleased, master. I am. Naruto smiled broadly, placing his hand on the top of her head. You've already cleaned up, right? Sayla nodded in response. Unfortunate, because I plan to get you dirty again. Naruto reached out and turned off the shower, while his hand on the top of her head gently pushed her down. Now be a good girl and get on your knee. I'd like to start with that pretty face and hair first. Lemon skipped. The next morning. Is she really here? Sayla asked as she looked around, searching for a specific redeed, while doing her best to ignore the staring of the people around them. Of all the places one could use for education, they chose the beach. The demon muttered as she followed Naruto. When Naruto told her she was out for education, she had expected more from the girl who claimed to be one of the strongest and most annoying enemies of the Balam Alliance. The beach was no place for education. Surely Scarlet Urza could be more sympathetic and do better than this. Yes, she's here. Naruto nodded as he made his way to Urza's position. It was quite a feat for him to find her, as Urza possessed a very powerful and unique magical signature, one that only one other person possessed, a woman who had the same hair color as his. There they are. He suddenly stopped and pointed. Sayla looked in that direction and, quite sure enough, she saw a girl in armor with red hair training with a boy with pink hair. Is this the girl? Sayla asked in surprise, completely ignoring the pink-haired boy. You're right, master. She looks very much like her mother. She also takes after Irene in more than just fair looks. Naruto laughed as he looked at Urza saving with the gray color. However, despite this saying, he could see that Urza struggled with strong determination and the burning will come, something her mother had lost a very long time ago. You know what? Naruto turned back to Sayla, took a few thousand jewels from his pocket and gave them to her. You take this and go to the nearest local grocery store or restaurant to buy yourself and me a decent breakfast and lunch, okay? You will, master. Sayla accepted the money. May I ask what you want, master? Something should be nice, I'm not picky. Sayla nodded and turned to walk away. Oh, and try not to kill anyone. You'll get me in trouble, you know. The demon bowed her head and disappeared after that. Putting his hands in his pockets, Naruto started making his way toward them. He already knew what to say and what to do. Hopefully, he wouldn't have to improvise because who knew how unpredictable Urza was. Wearing her fire-resistant armor, the Empress of Flame armor, Urza eyed her fellow student, Natsu Dragneel, very carefully as he launched a barrage of punches, which she easily dodged by shifting her body backward. When he tried to kick her, Urza countered by slashing her sword at his side, but the Fire Dragon Slayer was more than capable of dodging such an attack, and he did so without a problem. Hit him already, Urza. Standing a few feet away from them with the rest of the team, the gray-haired man called Strong, when will this be my turn? He grumbled impatiently, crossing his weapons over his chest. The two had been training for almost 15 minutes, and Urza had promised to train with each and every one of them, since she was, undoubtedly, the strongest among them, and currently had what it takes to participate in the Grand Magic Games. The Ice Princess is closed off and won't let me concentrate. Natsu growled and sent fireballs flying at Urza, who simply raised her sword and absorbed some fireballs into it while the rest struck her, but due to the fire resistance element of her armor, it could barely leave any damage on her body. I'm ignited. He punched his burning fists together and leaped into the air before generating a torrent of fire from both of his hands and creating a massive fireball without joining his hands together. Karyu no Kon. Ignite the brilliant dragon flame. He's exaggerating. Lucy shouted as Natsu launched the fireball at Urza when it reached its maximum height. The scarlet-headed Nidus grunted in annoyance as she raised her sword and braced herself to counter his massive attack, as well as preventing the area from taking the worst damage. Suiton. Suryudan no Jutsu, water release. Drink the dragon bullet technique. However, before she could do that, a gigantic powerful water dragon, gasping for breath in the clash, rose from the ocean, flew into the fireball, and struck it with formidable force, creating a large amount of steam and dispersing it in the process. Urza gasped and looked around, her eyes widening in shock because there were only two people in this world who were capable of using that kind of technique. Who in the? Natsu asked, but instantly he was knocked to the ground as an orb of cold water pulled at him and splashed him in the face. Turn it on. I think you need to cool down, brat. A familiar voice said as the steam slowly disappeared, this beach is a tourist attraction and nobody needs you ruining it. Naruto. Lucy gasped in surprise as the blonde finally came into view, standing a few feet behind Urza with his hands in his pockets and a small, smug smile on his face. The rest of Team Natsu and Shadow Gear both stared at him in surprise, with Natsu picking himself up from the ground and grumbling in annoyance. "What are you doing here?" Urza asked curiously, trying her best to keep her voice normal. He had refused to come with them and train her, so she had no idea why he was there. "How did you find us?" "I told you, right? This place is a tourist attraction, so I need a reason to be here." He answered by accident, but then decided to tell the truth when Urza kept staring at him. "Fine. I asked Mira. She told me where your party is. Your team's training position is right next to my house, so I found it yesterday." He turned to the others and gave them a simple greeting, "Good morning. It's a pleasure to see you all here again." But he greeted Lucy with a nod of his head. "Lucy. Is this so?" Urza nodded her head in understanding. "You haven't answered my first question." She then re-equipped her Flame Empress armor, replacing it with her two-piece black bikini swimsuit. "Are you finally agreeing to my request?" she asked hopefully. "I'm not going to train him." His response made her laugh die away. "However, Urza raised an eyebrow in curiosity. What did he mean? Before he could continue, a certain light blue maid with wine-pink hair appeared, pushing her head out from under the sand, right where Lucy was sitting. The light blue-haired wizard cried out in surprise and blushed slightly when she found herself sitting directly on top of the pink-haired maid's head. "Time, the emergency, Virgo, the maiden," the celestial spirit said with his usual impassive expression. "I am ready for punishment." "Why are you here?" Lucy asked as she lifted and helped the Virgo out of the sand. "Virgo?" The spirit of a maid, Carla pointed to her paw on the Virgo and said expressionlessly. "Lucy has been in the fairy sphere for 7 years, which means that all the celestial spirits who made contracts with her remained in the celestial realm," the grey color said, crossing his weapons. "Ah, poor spirits. Because of Lucy's flaw. Juvia screamed as she covered her mouth with her hands. "No, this isn't a big problem for us." The Virgo looked down, his eyes still showing no emotion, but everyone could see some sadness in them. "What happened?" Levi asked curiously. Each of them turned their eyes to look at the maiden, who awaited their answer. "The celestial kingdom is in a crisis of extermination," the maid said. Please help us." This everyone did, especially Lucy's gasping in shock. What happened?" "The king of the celestial kingdom awaits you," Virgo bowed her head. "I must collect you here," she informed him. "Sure." Natsu shouted. "They're going to help them. We're friends." "Wait. People can't go to the celestial kingdom, right?" Lucy asked her spirit. "You can enter the kingdom in celestial clothing." The Virgo replied before a large magic circle appeared beneath them and shone brightly. "Ready to go?" she asked. "Hey. I'm not ready yet." "Hold on for a second," Natsu said, turning everyone's attention to him. The Virgo also looked at the immortal shinobi and was about to say something, but stopped when she saw him wink at her, which was insensitive to the others. "You all," Natsu indicated, "and the Shadow Gear team can go and save any world you want, but Urza, you stay here." His words, which came out more as an order, startled them, especially Urza, who could only stare at him in shock. What? Why?" It was Lucy who asked that question. "Which oratory? Why don't you come with us?" Natsu asked, crossing his weapons over his chest. "Since I don't want to, and this isn't my business," Naruto replied by accident. "What? The celestial kingdom is in danger and you're not going to help?" The others immediately intervened to restrain him. "What an annoying brat," Naruto grumbled. "Sayla would be very disappointed. Anyway, Urza is staying here." He gestured to his feet. "You can decide to leave if that's what you want, but you'll regret that decision later." They would all regret their decision later. The moment they decided to go to the celestial kingdom with Virgo, he knew exactly what was going to happen. Urza looked at him, carefully considering her next decision. Should he stay or should she follow the others? The Sky Kingdom was in dire straits and she wanted to come with her teammates to save it. On the other hand, when she thought about Naruto's words, she wanted to stay. From what she had seen, he was a strong shinobi and might even be stronger than her teacher, who couldn't be found anywhere at the moment. If there was anyone who could help her master of the kunoichi armor, it was Naruto. He was the only one who could teach his master the art of shinobi and train her to be a proper kunoichi. Mentally nodding her head, Urza turned to face her teammates, who were looking at her and waiting to tell them what she was going to do. "I think I'll stay," she said to herself. "The guys are moving on. I think I'll stay here and see what he managed to say." She pointed at Naruto, standing behind her. "Really?" Levi asked. Had she decided to come with Lucy and the others? "Are you sure you're Urza?" "Yes, you can take care of a battle without me, right?" Urza asked, looking at her friends. "Of course we can." Natsu smiled contentedly, piercing his palm. "We'll save the Sky Kingdom and be back in no time." "I definitely have one, Natsu." Urza laughed, nodding her head. "But if the situation gets worse, come get me as soon as you can, okay?" The others nodded their heads. This is set up then. Virgo said casually as Urza tightened the magic circle. Is everyone ready? Go on, let's go then. After saying this, the magic circle beneath them turned and teleported each of them away in a flash of light. Well, we'll see you guys later then, Urza Naruto. The engine android said and left without another word. Well, what do you want to tell me again? Urza immediately turned to him and asked. Follow me. Let's go for a walk, shall we? Naruto gestured. Urza quickly followed after him, keeping a close distance between them. Don't you want to know why I didn't let you come with your team? Urza shrank back and shook her head. Why then? The Virgul eyes. He replied, making Urza's eyes widen in surprise. Nothing happens in the celestial world. This is just a pathetic excuse the spirits pass through to bring Lucy to their world. But why? Urza asked, confused. Why did she lie? I mean she just has to ask and we'll come with her. As 1 day in the real world equals 3 months in the celestial kingdom. What? Urza shouted, impressed by the revelation. Time passes differently in different worlds, Naruto explained. You spent 1 day there and you'd only have 5 days left to train for the Grand Magic Games. Is this what you want? He asked, and Urza angrily shook her head. But what about the others? Why didn't you warn them? She placed both hands on her head, gripping her hair as she stopped walking. This isn't important right now. I have to warn them, otherwise they won't get any stronger to participate in the tournament. They'll find out sooner or later. Naruto chuckled quietly. Do they need me to remind you that you can't go to that place without the light blue clothes? Virgo is the only one who can give them to you, and since you don't know how to put them on, I don't think you're going anywhere. He shrank back. You? Even if I did, I wouldn't tell her. This was a lie, though, because he knew how to put himself there. Before he could say anything, Naruto spoke up. Well, I think this is the point to get to the conversation about your request. He pointed his hand at her. I'll repeat it again. I'm not going to train you, Urza. However, he said loudly, preventing him from saying anything, because I'm a man with a big heart, a lot of generosity, and a lot of leisure to spare, I think I'll reconsider my decision. Really? Urza was surprised. She hadn't quite believed in the big heart and generosity, but decided to keep that opinion to herself as she continued, but what's with the fuss? Can't you suddenly change your mind like that? You're right. Naruto smiled slyly, satisfied. Listen, I'll only reconsider my decision if you can master this ninjutsu in 3 weeks. Naruto spun his hand and created a blue orb of swirling chakra in his palm, which left Urza completely speechless. What is this technique? She asked, looking at the spinning orb with wide eyes. This is called Rasengan. Naruto slammed her hand away when she tried to touch him. Only then will you know, my old man, that your precious teacher is the creator of this technique. Really? Urza asked in surprise. Yep. It took him 3 years to create this technique. He taught it to his teacher, Jiraiya the Toad Sage. She recognized the name immediately. He was the author of the book Naruto had lent Lucy, who told him this was truly a masterpiece, who took 3 months to master it. Jiraiya then taught it to me, and it took me about 2 weeks to create it. He told her, making Urza look at him in surprise again. So I guess this is a fair deal if I give you 3 weeks to learn it. I'm guessing. Urza could only nod her head curiously before the request. But. Why? I mean. You said you weren't going to train me, and yet here you are, teaching me something that's your father's creation. Well, it's because we have this tradition of passing this technique on to our students, Naruto explained with a small laugh. So if you want me to train you, which means you'll become my student, you have to know how to use Rasengan. Usually, you have to become a student first before you're taught this technique, but I reversed the rule. Okay then. Urza nodded. What do I have to do? My father taught you the basics of chakra molding, right? Urza nodded. Well, you're good at chakra control. I still have some issues, but I think I'll get the ticket. Urza answered sincerely, I trained a lot. Stop it, I don't need to know this. Naruto interrupted, making Urza grimace in annoyance. Urza didn't have a massive chakra reserve like his, so she had much better control of her chakra than he did when he learned Rasengan. I'll explain the advanced details later. For now, you just need to know that to create a full power Rasengan, you have to follow 3 steps. Rotation, power, and containment. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a palm-sized balloon. We'll start with this. He handed it to her, and Urza accepted with both hands. Water balloon? She asked in confusion. The first one is all about practicing spinning your chakra in every direction. Naruto pulled another water balloon from his other pocket, held it up in front of him, and continued, I want you to spin the water inside it and then pop it. Like this. Instantly, the water balloon burst, splashing water all over her hands. Some of it splashed onto her face, but she didn't seem to mind. Try spinning your chakra and we'll see the results. And see if she had the talent to train in the art of a ninja. Okay then, Urza nodded and immediately got to work, holding the water balloon in one hand. It turned out that spinning her chakra was much harder than she thought. However, she was determined that she could do it. What other option did she have? End of chapter 8. Chapter 9. 3 months later. The Cane Beach was and always will be one of the most popular tourist spots in the land of Fiori. Among its many attractions were the impressive amusement park, the huge sandy beach adjacent to the sea, the five-star hotel housed a casino in its basement where visitors and players could have enjoyed themselves, and the gigantic amusement park where everyone could have fun all day and all night with the exciting entertainment it provided. Wild. Irakar, Warkri and Jaeger were three tourists who came to a Cane Beach almost every weekend last month. They were among the strongest members of Quattro Cerberus, one of the top mage guilds in the country. All three of them wore colorful swimsuits, leaving their muscular upper bodies exposed, attracting a lot of attention from the women, who liked the strong-looking men, around them. They also made many others stare strangely whenever they shouted their trademark slogan with enthusiasm. Anyone want a drink? The rocker looked at his teammates and asked with a satisfied smile on his face. Nodding their heads in agreement, the three men from Quattro Cerberus quickly headed to the nearest bar and took their seats on the wooden chairs that had been placed around it. "I'll have a coconut, please," said the waitress, who nodded and then turned her attention to two others. "What would you like, two refined gentlemen?" she asked, giving them a cute laugh, which caused them to blush and giggle dreamily almost instantly. While some might find them quite handsome and attractive, because most of Quattro Cerberus consisted of male members with mildly punkish attitudes, none of them had interacted with girls much, which left all three of them rather inexperienced with women, especially as cute as these they were addressing. "Don't worry, guys. It's on me this time." The rocker smiled contentedly, pointing at him. "Savage." Both Warkri and Jaeger shouted with excitement at the same time before giving their orders to the waitresses, who nodded their heads and walked away to get their drinks. "So, the Grand Magic Game is going to happen in 5 days. Who do you think the master is going to decide to represent us this year?" Warkri asked as he accepted his drinks from the waitress, which was the cocktail, while Jaeger had a cold beer for a drink. "Bacchus, probably." Warkri answered without a second thought. "He's our strongest. The master of the gold mine will probably choose him as our team leader too. To tell you the truth, I hope he picks me too." Jaeger spoke with a confident laugh. "I trained hard to prepare for this. You guys both had your chances last year. I hope I get my shot at the next tournament. I hope you're going. Anyway, Sabretooth is going to participate in this year's game too, right?" Ambo Warkri's teammates nodded their heads at his question. "Well, they are the strongest guild after all. They'll carelessly go to the tournament to make sure no one takes their place." Jaeger clenched his hand into a fist, saying, "That guild, after those 5 appeared, we never had a chance of winning. Hopefully, we can hold second place this year. Lamia the Scale isn't a real threat." Warkri smiled broadly. "Speaking of standing, I heard Fairy Tail is participating this year as well, but this time those who disappeared 7 years ago will be fighting. Weren't they the ones who made Fairy Tail the strongest guild 7 years ago?" "So?" the rocker asked arrogantly. "It's not like they can keep picking us up. We've gotten much stronger, there's no way those guys can keep picking us up after only 3 months. Akka said there was a mage named Urza Scarlet, Fairy Tail Titania. She was as strong as he was, and their fights always ended in draws." 2 others paled at the thought. They both knew how powerful Bacchus was. To learn that a girl as powerful as his strongest member was terrifying. The gold mine master also warned us not to underestimate them. "Go and just wait for us. Can I have a cup of strawberry juice, please?" The sweet voice caught their attention, and instantly the 3 Cerberus wizards turned their heads to the side to look at the source and nearly dropped their jaws in shock. The figure beside them was an exceptionally beautiful young woman with long brown hair. She had an amazing figure, athletic yet feminine, with large breasts and wide hips, a plump bottom, and mile-long legs. She wore sunglasses and a black bikini that hugged her impressive assets nicely. This left more to the imagination, but still revealed just enough to make her look incredibly alluring. Both men began panting like fish. Her beauty outmatched every woman standing around her. This also overwhelmed their minds, preventing them from fully controlling their bodies as they normally would. She accepted the glass of lemonade, taking a sip before turning her head to look at the yawning men. A laugh crossed her lips, and she lowered her sunglasses slightly to look at them. Her eyes were brown, and they had a rather seductive look in them, just what they imagined a woman like her to have. "Hey guys, how's it going?" Warkri, who managed to regain his composure faster than his friends, raised his hands and hit them on the back, bringing them back to the real world. "We were issuing a fine," they said at the same time, trying their best to keep their voices as normal as possible. "As for you?" "I'm doing well, thank you for the request." She laughed seductively before leaning closer, introducing herself, "The name Nightwalker, what's yours?" I'm the rocker. You have a strong name for a lady as beautiful as yourself. Nightwalker winked, making the rocker blush. My name is Jaeger. The white-haired man followed his friend's lead and introduced himself. I am Warcree and we are Mag de Quattro Cerberus. Warcree introduced himself before all three of them shouted at the same time, savage. Quattro Cerberus. Nightwalker gasped before the refrain in an excited voice. Oh my god. I am your greatest fan. All three of them widened their eyes in surprise, but no less excited as Nightwalker came closer to them. Is this so? Warcree asked, scratching the back of his head, blushing intensely. Yes, I've been a fan of the Hellhound's mage since forever. She took off her sunglasses and put it on the table. Can I have your autograph, please? Nightwalker asked, bouncing up and down before she magically produced a Quattro Cerberus poster and a quill pen, but the three wizards were also focused on boob jumps to notice such a feat from a normal girl. Ah, here you go, the rocker said sheepishly, taking the poster and pen and signing it over his face. He gave it to his friends, and soon enough the poster had all three of their signatures on it. Thank you so much. She laughed, clutching the sign to her chest. Could you buy her a drink? Before they could see anything, she followed with a beautiful innocent laugh that they couldn't resist. Please, I always wanted to find you. This would be my honor. Ah, of course. Warcree nodded his head. His face was red, and he couldn't take his eyes off Urza as she walked over to stand between him and Jaeger. 4 beers, please. Nightwalker said to the waitress, who walked away and returned with 4 cups of beer, which she gave them. Alright lads, go make a toast for Cerberus. Nightwalker held the glass steady. Your souls will forever be wild. Savage. The 3 men shouted with excitement and clinked their cups of Nightwalker before taking them to their mouths. They didn't stop until the cup was completely empty. It was amazing, Nightwalker declared as she placed her empty cup down on the bar counter, along with the money for both of their drinks. It's truly amazing to find him here, but I think it's time for me to take my leave. Ah, that's a shame then. She said. Yes, my boyfriend is waiting for me. Laughter erupted from their faces the instant she mentioned her boyfriend, feeling utterly disappointed. He wouldn't be happy if it took him so long to get me a drink. She gestured to her strawberry juice. Good luck in the magnificent magic game. I hope we meet again. She picked up her sunglasses and walked away, waving to the men of Quattro Cerberus. Well, I guess this is time for us to go then, the rocker said to his friends, who nodded in agreement. He reached into his trunk's pockets, searching for his wallet. His eyes widened when he couldn't find it anywhere. Strange, I thought I brought my wallet with me. Maybe you left it at the hotel. Let me pay for the drinks, you can give me my money back later, Jaeger said, reaching into his pocket as the rocker could only laugh sheepishly. However, a shocked expression crossed his face when he couldn't find his wallet either. Where's my wallet? They both turned to Warcree, who quickly searched for his wallet and money. However, much like his friends, he couldn't find him. No. It was at that moment they realized that they had been put in the pocket by the same lady who claimed to be her biggest fan. Line break. Nightwalker hummed a victory tune as she walked along Akane's beach, holding the wallet she had taken from the unfortunate Cerberus mages. Her mission had gone a whole lot better than she had thought. Nightwalker had to admit that while she hadn't wanted to do it, it was something she had to do to prove to herself that she could do it without any problems. It didn't take her long to reach him. He was on the far side of the beach, away from the fun, excitement and hospitality, leaning his back against a coconut tree. He had his guns crossed over his chest and his eyes were closed, but she knew better than that. Even with his eyes closed, the man was fully aware of his surroundings. He, too, had his guard up and was more than ready to respond to her attempt to surprise him and slam his face into the sand if she tried to attack him. His name was Naruto Uzumaki and he was his teacher. You're in the back. Just as she was about to announce her presence, he said. Opening his eyes, the man looked at her and the purses in her hand, chuckling slightly. That was quick. You're better at this than I thought. Seems you really do have the talent to become a proper kunoichi after all. Nightwalker smiled victoriously with satisfaction and reached for the top of her head. Grasping a handful of her brown hair, she then pulled it back, removing it from her head, revealing the long, beautiful scarlet red hair that cascaded down to the small spot on her back. The young woman shook her head, tossing her real hair from side to side, before running her fingers over it, tearing off the wig. I told you, didn't I? Urza Scarlet said as she clasped her hands together, forming a hand seal. In a puff of smoke, the blue crest of Fairy Tail reappeared on her left arm. I'm not some innocent girl who knows nothing about seduction. You have to take me more seriously than this. She was well aware that she was beautiful and alluring, as much as she had been called. She also wasn't shy about putting them to good use. In numerous situations, especially during missions that required close attention, Urza had used her beauty to her advantage. Hell, she even had an armor, the seduction armor, which consisted of skimpy clothing. While she had never used it in a fight, Urza knew she could distract her opponents with her hexuality, if they were male, of course. For the past 3 months, Urza had been working her ass off to become a kunoichi. By giving Naruto a perfect version of the Rasengan after 3 weeks, Urza had become his student. While he taught her many useful tricks and trained her into a kunoichi, Naruto could be a real driver's slave when it came to training. He had pushed her to her limits, taking her to a world where there was no mercy and making her realize that everything she knew about ninjas up until now was nothing but a lie. It was difficult, very difficult, but Urza kept her mouth shut and accepted it. He said she didn't have the talent to become a ninja, which she had to admit, but she was always able to turn in her assignments on time. She might complain about him, his personality, and his methods whenever they strayed from proper education, but whenever Urza donned her kunoichi armor, the pride of her teacher, she was serious and didn't object when he gave her an impossible task, like mastering shuriken art in less than a week. She wasn't a genius in the art of shinobi, but she could use her skills to compensate for that. Don't be so arrogant. Naruto shook his head and gestured with his hands. Your targets are low intelligent. They also don't have much experience with women. You're also disguised with a wig and transformation technique, so they don't know who you are. Urza's right cheek puffed out as she frowned. This would be a whole lot more difficult for you if the situations were different, or if they were cheerful, or if they were your hated enemies, or if they noticed that all of this was just too suspicious for them. You really can't give me a little, small praise, can you? Urza asked as she crossed her weapons over her chest. Nope, not yet, not before you've earned it. There's still a lot for you to learn, girl. A kunoichi at the mid-chunin level will never get praise from a god primal shinobi like me. Naruto shook his head, saying it dramatically with his hands raised in the air. You have a massive ego, you know that, Naruto. Excuse me? Naruto asked with mock surprise as he leaned forward. Did you just call me that again? He turned his head to the side and pointed to his ear. Would you like to repeat that more clearly? TCH. Urza grunted, her mouth sharp as she glared at him. He could be a pain in the ass sometimes. It's nothing, Naruto-sensei, she said respectfully, but rather sarcastically. Naruto chuckled quietly and leaned back, crossing his weapons over his chest as he looked at his student. Tan, what have you learned today? To be seductive. That's why you haven't made any improvement as a kunoichi in the past 2 weeks, Urza, Naruto said, pointing his hand at her. Being seductive? Yes, perhaps. But this is only a very small part of what I'm talking about. Surely, as a kunoichi, you can take advantage of your body to distract your enemies, perhaps even resorting to hexual copulation to get what you want from them, but that's not important as long as you can deceive them first. Urza sighed. She hadn't known what he was holding. Having hex to get what you want? No thanks. Well, she wanted to be a kunoichi, in her opinion, it was too extreme. What I'm talking about is the ability to harmonize. Ah, I see. Interpretive skill is one of the most important skills of a shinobi. It's almost as important as caution, which you learned but still failed miserably. Urza frowned and felt seriously disappointed. Failed. She thought she'd done better than this. Just because she couldn't steal a slice of strawberry cheesecake from his space while he sat right in the middle of it didn't mean she couldn't move behind someone else and finish them off with a palm strike. It's very important for a ninja to harmonize with their surroundings and deceive their enemies with their actions. In the old days, it was almost impossible for ordinary shinobi and kunoichi to infiltrate their enemies' bases without proper preparation. One small mistake and they were exposed. Many of them had failed and were captured by their enemies, who enjoyed putting them to a fate worse than death. Urza shuddered at the thought. Naruto had told his many stories of the shinobi era, which was a very, very long time ago. This was one of the darkest times in human history, where hatred was the sole motivation. Did this make her realize how fortunate she was to have been born in such a brilliant era? But fortunate for you, that kind of time had passed long ago, but this never hurt to be extra careful with your attempts to distract someone and then steal their money straight from their pockets without them knowing anything about it, right? Yes, you're right. Urza nodded in agreement. Anyway, you wait here, I'm going to. Now where are you going, miss? Naruto asked her and stopped when Urza turned and was about to walk away. I'm going to return these to their owners, of course, Urza declared, holding up the purses she was carrying. I'm saying you keep them. Naruto rolled his eyes, making Urza's eyes widen in surprise. You don't steal someone's money and then give it back later unless they give you a proper reason. Well, they haven't done anything, and… You remember when Natsu challenged me, I made a bet and I ended up taking all his money? Urza nodded. Well, this is how it works. You'll only give them their money back once they do something to earn it back. But I don't think I can find them again. Urza argued, well, we'll probably run into each other at the magnificent magic game as competitors, but they won't know it was me who stole. Good, exactly, Naruto smiled contentedly. It was at that moment Urza understood that he would never leave the money with its rightful owners upon his return. He keeps it. It's what it takes to become a kunoichi. Seriously? Red-haired kunoichi asked with a deadpan expression. You know what, I don't believe you this time. Hide it yourself. Naruto smiled contentedly and turned his head to the side when he saw his favorite girl in the world approaching, carrying a wooden basket in her hands. Anyway, this is enough for you today. Next time, we'll go for a more difficult target and see if you can pull it off. He then raised his hand and called out, Sayla, over. The Aetherius turned its head when she heard their call and immediately walked towards them. I'm back, master. She bowed her head before turning it back to Urza. Urza, I expect no concern from my master. Urza could only shrink in response. The horned girl greeted the scarlet-haired mage curtly, but this was nothing new. I've brought what you asked for, master. She turned back to Naruto and showed him the basket, which was heavy with many food items. Good work, Sayla. I expect nothing less from you. He smiled broadly, giving her a thumbs up. Of course, master. Sayla laughed, blushing slightly before acknowledging the purses in Urza's hand. So you've done it. Congratulations. It didn't take Urza's past experiences to know that she didn't mean it at all. Thank you for the compliment. Urza nodded, trying her best to sound polite. Sayla didn't like her in the slightest. Why? She had no idea. She'd encountered the black-haired demon only minutes after Naruto had shown her the first step of the Rasengan, but the first moment their eyes met, Urza understood that she had already gotten on Sayla's bad side. The two usually got into arguments about the most arbitrary things, usually about Naruto, much like he was with her and Mira when they were young, but while her best friend was an excitable, short-tempered guy, Sayla was as cold as ice and knew how to use her words to provoke her, insult her, and piss her off. All at the same time. Sensing the tension between the two, Naruto decided to speak up. The next thing he needed was Sayla trying to hurt Urza in the worst possible way on her next mast. Okay, this is pretty damn good, girls. He said, time for lunch. I'm hungry and I can use a sandwich right now. Ah, of course. My deepest apology, master. Sayla bowed her head and quickly went to prepare a suitable place for her master to sit and enjoy his lunch. In a moment, all three of them took their seats on the orange picnic blanket Sayla had laid out on the ground. I'll prepare the sandwiches for you, master. Sayla laughed as she opened the basket and took out a bag of sandwiches, a bottle of peanut butter, and a large bottle of orange juice, as well as various cooking utensils. Okay then. Naruto nodded. Sayla, if you don't mind, Urza began, but was interrupted when Sayla placed the basket in front of her. You can help yourself, right? The Aetherius asked, picking up a knife. Okay then. That's all Urza could manage, and she opened the basket to get her lunch. When she found her favorite strawberry cheesecake inside, Urza couldn't help but laugh. At least Sayla remembered her request and bought the cake for her. Here you go, master. Thank you, Sayla. Naruto laughed and accepted Sayla's sandwich. Taking a bite, he then turned to Urza and asked, if you don't mind me asking, why Nightwalker? I mean, this isn't exactly a name, is it? This is a surname, Urza replied with a nod, and this is a long story. Okay, go ahead, I'm all ears. Line break. In a flash of light, Natsu and the rest of his team except for Urza and Juvia were teleported back to the human world. It turned out that nothing had happened to the Celestial Kingdom. It was simply that the Celestial King, the ruler of the Celestial Spirit World, wanted to invite Lucy and her friends to his world to celebrate their return. They celebrated all day long there, and it was one of the best moments they had ever had. Great. We've had such a good time. Natsu said confidently as she took a step forward. They'll be back to continue training. We must be strong enough to strike other guilds in 3 months. The Grey One nodded seriously. We have to prepare everything. I wonder where Urza-sen is, Wendy said aloud as she looked around, searching for the strongest member of her team. Oh, by the way, the Virgo, the maiden, the celestial spirit turned her head and spoke to Lucy impassively, gaining everyone's attention. There's one thing I forgot to tell you. What is it, the Virgo? Lucy asked curiously. Time moves at a different pace in the Celestial Kingdom. Do you mean? Natsu interrupted, saying excitedly, that 1 year here equals 1 day in the human realm. So this is a dream zone for education. The gray color agreed with equal enthusiasm. However, what came next was something none of them had expected. Actually, this is the front part, Virgo replied expressionlessly. 1 day in the celestial realm equals 3 months in the human world. His ruthless words froze them in shock. The team was completely startled by the information and didn't know how to respond. Natsu, Gray, and Juvia muttered in shock, turning as pale as ghosts. Hey, you all. The engine and Droy appeared and greeted them joyfully. We've been waiting so long. The magnificent magic fighting battle will be held in 5 days. You must have been training hard. Droy happily informed them, completely forgetting his sense of humor. Oh my god. All three of them fell to the ground, facing each other first, while Wendy fell to her knees and screamed. "You mustache bastard." Lucy shouted angrily with a forced laugh. "They're turning back time." "What are they talking about?" Motor asked in confusion. A few minutes later, after Virgo had changed his clothes, they all sat with their backs against a tree branch, still unable to believe that 3 months had passed and they had wasted all those precious times on the game. The magnificent magic game was about to begin in less than 5 days and none of them believed they could do it. "How did we end up in this mess?" Juvia asked, trying to force a laugh onto her face. "Our precious education time." Natsu couldn't help but let out a longing sigh. 3 months, just like this. The gray color nodded before lowering its head. "What are we going to do?" Lucy asked the other. "I guess we have no other option, just let someone else compete this time." The stated imposition sadly caused Juvia to release a heavy sigh. "What? Are you messing with me?" Natsu instantly stood up and shouted loudly, "There's no way I'm going to let those bastards take all the glory. We can still do it if we start now. We're going to have a 5-day shock education of hell." He yelled, fire blazing in his eyes. "Everyone get up and get your ass ready. There won't be time for sleep yet. Lucy? Every one of you." Before anyone could say anything to oppose Natsu's crazy idea of education, they heard a familiar voice and turned their heads in the same direction, where they saw Urza running towards them, waving her hand above her head. Following closely behind her was none other than Naruto Uzumaki, and what annoyed them, Natsu and the Grey One, most was that he had a smug grin on his face as he looked down at them, as if he found their pathetic state amusing, which he did. "Urza?" Lucy gasped in surprise. Urza looked different. She had grown taller, her hair had grown longer, and she was even more beautiful than before. She hadn't expected her friend to change so much in just 3 months. They all got up from their spots, but before any of them could say anything more, she exploded right in their faces. "It's been 3 months. Did you guys really take that long to get back? A whole day? What were you doing in the Celestial Kingdom? Do you know the Grand Magic Tournament is happening next week?" "We know, Urza." Lucy interrupted, raising her hands to shield her face in case Urza grew impatient and decided to headbutt her, "and we're right in the fright here. Didn't we know that time was different in the celestial realm?" She then widened her eyes in realization, "They're holding on, you know. Naruto-sensei told me." Standing behind his student, Naruto accidentally raised his hand and gave them a peace sign. They were all surprised when they heard that the Urza Way had called out to Naruto and couldn't help but wonder if she had managed to convince the blonde to teach her. "But this is his flaw too, Lucy, you should have known. It's written in every magic book about celestial magic." Well. Lucy convincingly laughed in embarrassment, "I learned everything from my mother. I thought she had taught me everything like that." "No excuses." Urza shouted, making them jump up in surprise. "You know, Virgo was obviously lying when she said the celestial realm was on the verge of an extermination crisis," Naruto said as he looked at Virgo, who was kneeling on the ground, moaning in pleasure not too far from them. She had rope wrapped tightly around her body and a pile of bricks lay in her lap. "You realize that you will not be able to participate in the magnificent magic game like this, right?" "But what can we do now?" Lucy asked. "We're out of options here, Urza. There's simply no way we can become stronger in just 5 days. Actually, there's a way to get stronger in 5. However, Naruto was interrupted when a dove suddenly flew down and landed on top of Urza's head. "How? Nice," the immortal shinobi muttered as he glared angrily at the dove. "A pigeon?" Lucy asked, confused. "There's something tied to its leg. I think this is a message." Curiously, Urza removed the paper from her leg and read the message aloud for everyone to hear. "To the fairy tale, please come to the suspension, deep within the forests." "Well, what are we waiting for then?" Natsu asked and turned around. The others were about to follow his example, but Urza stopped them. "Hold on for a second. I don't think this is a good idea," she explained. "We don't know who's sending us this message. This could be a prank or even a trap." She glanced at Naruto before adding, "It's very dangerous to just jump into something without knowing anything about it." "I couldn't agree more." The blonde boy chuckled quietly, nodding his head. This was one of the first lessons Naruto had taught him. "So what do you suggest then?" Gray asked, crossing his arms over his chest. "We'll split into 2 groups." Urza gestured to them. "One group will go straight ahead, while the others will follow closely behind undetected. If this is a trap, then we need to be prepared to deal with it." They all agreed to his idea and split into 2 groups. Natsu, Gray, Lucy, Juvia, Motor, and Roy, the 2 halves of Team Shadow Gear, would be Team 1 and go ahead, while Urza and the rest of them would follow behind, carefully hidden in bushes and behind trees. "Still don't think this is a good idea." As the groups made their way to the suspension bridge in the forest, Naruto asked when he noticed the puzzled expression on her face. "Yes, this could be an ambush." We've made many enemies from dark guilds over the years, so this wouldn't be a surprise if the one who sent the letter was a group of dark mages. She turned to look at him. You taught me that, didn't you? To always be one step ahead of your enemy. 1, 2, 3 steps. It's not really important as long as you can anticipate your enemy and quickly come up with a plan to deal with them, Naruto told him. Dividing into groups is a very good idea and I can see you've thought this through thoroughly. He had to admit. Even he couldn't do any better in this situation. For the first team, Natsu, Gray and Juvia were the ones who could inflict some serious damage, while Lucy, Motor and Roy could provide the necessary support with their magic. The second team, meanwhile, had Wendy, Imposition and Exceed, all of whom had small bodies and could easily hide behind a tree or inside a bush. Naruto and Urza, meanwhile, could hide anywhere and easily erase their presence. Are you praising me, sensei? Urza looked at him and smiled with amused satisfaction. What did I say? Naruto glared at her. Don't be so arrogant. Your head is already big enough. Urza frowned as he patted her head. And if you still think this is going to be an ambush, then I'll tell you that Sayla is following us. Urza could only shake her head. She knew the demon was following them. Why? Because Urza knew that Sayla could never stay 100 feet away from her precious master unless he told her to. No one here. Natsu grunted, piercing his palm, scanning the area with his eyes as they reached the suspension bridge. No one here. What the hell? Was this a prank? Gray asked, having the same frown as Natsu. Then suddenly, much to their surprise, the bridge was postponed together. Broken branches and ropes flew above and below and began to pull each other together, creating a whole bridge that looked as good as new and joined the rock on the other side. Natsu said to the entertainment as he witnessed a demonstration of magic called the Arc of Time, a caster spell that revolved around manipulating time for inanimate objects and non-sentient beings. The caster of this magic was Altair Milkovich, a former member of the Dark Guild Grimwar the Heart. She had been on Tenru Island with her guild 7 years prior. More reason for them to believe this was a trap, but because Naruto had seen the person she became after the events in Tenru, he didn't think she still harbored ill feelings toward Fairy Tail. Hostile or not, it was something he could have told instantly, but he decided against it because he wanted to see how this would play out. The gray color asked in the crash, turning to Juvia, you think is it them? He gave her a meaningful look and Juvia couldn't help but nod her head nervously. This must be our invitation. Urza's eyes hardened at the mention of time magic. This could be a trap. I don't know who it could be, but they're going to go for it. Each of them nodded at Natsu's words and continued on their way. Then, after 5 minutes of travel, the first group shuddered when they saw 3 cloaked figures appear before them. He was right. Altair Milkovich was among them and there was also the girl who had left Tenru with her, Merity or something like that. The third figure, however, was someone he had seen before. As far as Naruto could tell, none of them were hostile. They also had no negative feelings toward Fairy Tail, showing that they came here in peace and simply wished to find Fairy Tail, as they had stated in their message. Thank you for coming. The middle one, a male, said and slowly removed his cloak, just like his 2 companions. He was a young man with a cold fixed gaze, blue hair and a red tattoo on the right side of his face. Fairy Tail. To his left was a woman with pale skin, dark purple hair and black eyes, sporting a rather voluptuous figure. She wore little more than a similar garment that most likely exposed her back. The attire was open on both sides of her body, except for a small accessory at her waist, revealing a fair amount of her large breasts. She also wore long black boots that left her upper thighs bare, a white cloth around her head, and owned a large crystal orb near her hip. In her right, she was a curvaceous young lady with warm pink eyes and long, wavy pink hair. Her outfit consisted of a red dress with gold netting around a deep neckline that exposed a large amount of her ample cleavage, with a short skirt and a belt with a yellow ribbon tied around her waist, colored black stockings, and brown boots. Dull. Urza murmured in surprise, while her friends in front gasped in shock at the sight of their former enemies. Do you know that brat? Naruto pointed, asking unpleasantly. Yes, we're childhood friends, back in the Tower of Heaven. Urza nodded, omitting the unpleasantness in her tone. And also, don't call him a brat. He's not that much younger than you. Naruto just rolled his eyes at the response. You all haven't changed a bit. The blue-haired man, Jell, said to Natsu and the others with a small laugh. He paused for a second before looking around. Where are the others? I'm sure Urza was with you. I'm here. Urza spoke over the words as she quickened her pace from her escape point, with Naruto and the rest following behind. There was no longer any reason for them to be on guard. He can't be too careless, can he? You're right, Urza. Jell nodded. We should have included more details in the message, but we can't risk it. We're not an illegal guild, but we're not exactly friends with the Magic Council either. He explained before continuing, I'm sure you've heard all about my escape from prison by now. Yes, Urza nodded her head. Although, to be honest, it's not what I had planned. The man said with a puzzled look, staring away to avoid Urza's eyes. Merity and I broke it out, Altair said with a laugh. I didn't do anything, you did everything for yourself, especially Altair, the pink-haired Merity said. She then looked at Juvia and laughed heartily. Juvia, it's been a while. The water girl, who had been trembling only seconds before, couldn't stop laughing. Carefully, she turned to the cheerful pink-haired girl. Hold on a second, you got away? Lucy asked, and also, you're two of the Heart Grimoire. This makes them our enemies, right? Gray asked, looking at Altair. Yes. The sins I've committed throughout my life are many, even if I used up my entire life's atonement, it wouldn't be enough. So I want to at least save as many people as I can, whom I encounter throughout my life. For example, Jelil right here. Altair said as she placed a hand on Jelil's shoulder. It's fine. You and I both struggle with the darkness, this is an old story, Jelil told her. Jelil, how is his memory? Urza asked, crossing their weapons together. It's all there, every last detail. Urza's eyes widened in surprise. 6 years ago when I was still in prison, my memory returned. Urza, I don't know what I'm supposed to say. Jelil told her sadly. I was responsible for what happened to him on that paradise island. Jelil was keeping an eye on me, though, so please, don't blame me too much. Altair added quickly before either of them could say anything. I thought I was going to die in prison, the death penalty, this is what I got. Until Altair broke me out, that's what I am. Jelil said. So, does that mean you found a reason to live now? Wendy asked. Wendy, I should tell you that Jelil you know and me are not the same people. Jelil said with a soft laugh, remembering that she had once mistaken him for another man she knew when she was younger. Ah yes. I understand this now. Wendy confirmed it, nodding her head. Jelil nodded and turned to answer the question she had asked him about finding a reason to live. A reason to live isn't something as wonderful as this. We created a guild. This isn't a legitimate guild, nor is this a dark guild, we are an independent guild, crime and sorcier. Jelil replied. Oh yes, I've heard about the sorcier crime. Urza nodded. They've destroyed many dark guilds over the years. Yes, our guild must rid this world of all the evil brought about by dark guilds and Zareth. So that never again will dark mages like us be born, and never again will an innocent being be forced to suffer at their hands, Jelil said. But then why don't you become an official guild through the council? Asked the gray-colored man. The W is because I'm a fugitive, Jelil replied uncomfortably. And because we're long-time Grimoire members at heart, Merity added, laughing nervously. Besides, we can't hunt down dark guilds if we're an official guild. The laws forbid us from doing so. She's right. Our guild is fine, so this makes sense now. Jelil agreed. So the reason we summoned you here was not merely to introduce ourselves. We have heard that you are entering the magnificent magical game, Altair explained. We cannot come near the event, otherwise we would appear to have a favor to ask of you. Do you want us to hire one of you? Natsu joked. We could do this for you. Every year, during the event, I've felt a strange magical force. Naruto raised an eyebrow when he heard this. Reaching into his back pocket, the blonde pulled out a calendar and began checking the date. I want to identify the source of that magic, Jelil said. Ah, dear, Naruto muttered sarcastically. He glanced at the date. Had it been 400 years already? He barely noticed. What is hell? Natsu asked in confusion. The Fiori guilds will be there, right? There are bound to be one or two suspicious magical forces, Lucy added. I thought so at first too, but this magic gave him a bad presence, like Zareth. Perhaps the presence comes from us, since we've been like this around Zareth, Jelil commented. We want to know the true source of this magical power, Altair insisted. From this, we might be able to detect where Zareth is. Jelil nodded, saying this seriously. Of course, winning or losing is a different story. Merity laughed. Let's cheer on the Shadow fairy tale. But in the meantime, please seek out the mysterious magic. Well, it sounds like you're on a completely futile attempt. Urza crossed her weapons over her chest before the refrain, but we'll lend you a hand, Urza promised. We appreciate it, Altair replied, laughing gratefully. Are you sure about this, Urza? Gray asked uncertainly, but reaffirmed her decision with a firm nod of her head. Well, if that's the case, then they're going back to school. Urza said as she looked around. We shouldn't waste any more time. About this, I think this is something I can help you with. Altair took a step forward. You're doing us a favor. It's only normal for us to give you something in return. Aside from Urza, the rest of you didn't receive any education during the past 3 months, did you? She asked, and those she mentioned looked away in embarrassment. To tell you the truth, we wanted to find you sooner, Merity explained. But you suddenly disappeared with Virgo, the celestial spirit maiden, and Urza were so focused on your education with him, she gestured to Naruto, so we didn't want to disturb them. Is this so? Juvia nodded her head in understanding. So what do you want to give us? We will give you your due compensation. She offered the lacrima orb she held. With my new enhanced time arc, I can raise the level of your ability. What? Natsu, Lucy, and Gray all said in confusion. A power beyond. I guess it's nice to think of it that way, but it's a little different. Altair explained. Each mage has something like a container within them that determines the limits of their magical power. In the event that the container becomes empty, the ether nano comes from the atmosphere and enters the body. After a while, the container is returned to normal. But recent studies have identified a portion of that container within each mage that is not normally used, a potential dormant power within each one's second origin. Altair laughed. My arc of time can develop their containers so that they are able to use second origin. In other words, this will give a gigantic boost to their magical power, even more than any of the training you have done so far. She finished, causing the fairy tale members to cheer with excitement. Yeah. But you're going to have to endure pain greater than your wildest imagination. The black-haired woman turned to the rest and declared wickedly, making them sweat nervously. Alright. Natsu exclaimed loudly. They're going to finish this, then we can go to the magnificent magic game. Line break. Ah. 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 But this decided, they all returned to the beach, finding a small cabin away from everyone else. Natsu, being the most energetic, agreed to go first and let Altair begin the process. However, the moment Altair cast her magic and runes began to appear on his body, he fell onto his back and began to moan, writhing, doubling over, clutching his throat, and rolling around in pain. Gray-haired Juvia and Wendy could only stare at him in shock and horror. So he's your teacher now? Lucy asked Urza as she looked at Naruto, who was sitting on a nearby rock facing away from them. How did you convince him to teach you? I didn't. Urza shook her head. This must be Mira. He said he found her before we got here. Is this so? Lucy nodded with a laugh. Nothing surprising about why he changed his mind. Did the beautiful fairy tale demon always have that kind of positive influence on other people? You must be a whole lot stronger now, right? I do, but it wasn't easy. Urza answered honestly. He really put me through hell just to get to this level. Are you, what do you call this again, a kunoichi now? Urza nodded her head with a laugh. There's still a lot for me to learn, but I think I can call myself a now. Good for you, Urza. Lucy laughed foolishly, happy for her friend. Shortly after, Altair was killed by Natsu. Gasping heavily, the shaky young boy pulled himself up from the ground. This was one of the most painful experiences he had ever had. How do you feel, Natsu? The question was posed as everyone gathered around him, impatient for the outcome. I don't know what. Natsu said as he placed a hand on his chest. I didn't feel that much of. But then he stopped, his eyes widening in shock. You should be able to feel it now. Altair asked with a satisfied laugh as she held her lacrima orb at her hip. Why yeah, this is aha. He sighed and called upon his magic before igniting a huge amount of flame from his hands, which burned brighter and stronger than it had ever been. This is big. He roared and increased his magical power, causing his entire body to be lifted by the fire. Each of them widened their eyes in surprise at the impressive display of magic. The intense heat made them cautiously distance themselves. Whoa, that was strong, Lucy declared in amazement. Very impressive. Urza nodded her head. No pain, no gain, I guess. The gray-haired man smiled with satisfaction as he removed his shirt, making Juvia squeal with pleasure. Good, I'm next. Those bastards better watch out, because we're going to take the grand magic game by storm. Natsu roared to the sky, throwing both his fists into the air. I'm on fire. He then looked down, searching for a specific person who wasn't impressed by the spectacle. Hey Naruto. Yes. Natsu? Naruto asked, getting up and jumping down to the ground. I want to test my strength. Natsu shouted confidently. He's going to fight. And I'm surprised, Naruto declared sarcastically. Hey, you're not going to throw away another bet again, are you? Gray asked worriedly. Much like other members of Team Natsu, he didn't want his money taken again. Don't worry, I'm not. Naruto's head trembled. It doesn't get me wrong, but I want to see how powerful he has become after opening the second origin, no consequences of course. His words made Natsu smile openly and sadistically. It was exactly what he wanted. Are you sure about this? Carla asked. Pretty sure. Naruto nodded his head. Come on, brat, show me what you got. Fine. I'll burn your pathetic donkey to oblivion. Natsu said as he summoned his newfound power, fusing lightning and fire within his body. Renyu mode. Fire blazed and lightning cracked around his body, creating a powerful explosion of magic that nearly knocked those standing around him to the ground. Oi oi, you're exaggerating, Natsu. Lucy said as she tried to cover her face with her hands. Didn't he almost defeat Lord Hades with this power? Merity asked in amazement, startled by the display of magic. Natsu must be stronger than him now. Gel nodded his head seriously. The thought truly terrified the two former members of Grimmer Heart. "Alright," Natsu said as he stepped down himself. "I'm coming, Naruto." He charged forward without intending to stumble. Dipping his right hand into lightning and the other into flame, Natsu then swung his weapons around, extending both elements lengthwise, creating a massive vortex of fire and lightning that traveled towards Natsu with great force. However, instead of doing anything to get out of the way, Naruto impressed everyone by not moving and letting the vortex hit him, creating a massive explosion that shook the entire beach and knocked everyone who wasn't aware to the ground. However, before anyone could say anything, the fire was carried away and dispersed without a trace in less than 5 seconds. Everyone was speechless. Not one person could utter a word when everything was so clear. Even Urza, who had been training under him for the past 3 months, couldn't believe what she had just witnessed. Is this it? Natsu's jaw dropped in shock when he saw Naruto standing in the same spot completely unharmed, his right arm extended to his side. You know what the good news is? I actually feel the warmth this time. Did he just do that by simply hitting his arm around? Having powerful magic doesn't make you powerful, Natsu. Naruto said as he turned away and snapped a piece of dirt off his shoulder. You've unlocked your second origin, but you still have to learn how to use it properly or you won't make any difference. He turned his attention back to them. Everything you do. He's right. Altair nodded her head in response. It would be best for you to have a lot of education after this to get used to your new ability. She turned to Gray and said, Gray, would you please step forward? Man, this sucks. Natsu snorted and crossed his weapons over his chest as Naruto approached him. Look at you didn't even get worn out after using Lightning Fire's Dragon Slayer magic, which is more than enough. The immortal shinobi said as he patted the boy on the shoulder. You have 5 days to prepare, so use it wisely because you're going to need it. He walked away, murmuring the last part to him. So who is he? Jelil turned to Urza and decided to ask her. He's a new member of Fairy Tail at least, the beginner among us. Urza replied. He's my teacher. You know I can singe this. I've found it somewhere before. The blue-haired man said, making Urza's eyes widen in surprise, but then she came to a conclusion for it. Perhaps he was his father. He was my teacher, the one who taught me how to use magic. Urza said, Naruto-sensei looked a lot like his father, so I guess you're confusing him with him because of the resemblance. Jelil just shrank back in response. End of chapter 9. Chapter 10. Twice a year, the magnificent magical game for Mag was held. The capital of Fiori, the flower that blooms in the capital, the saffron, would be filled with its citizens, as well as Mag of Fiori, who came from all over the world to participate in this special event. At the center was the king of Fiori's palace, Mercurius, an extremely large and tall building, appearing as one of the most visible elements in the valley where the saffron was located and towering above all other buildings in the city. Mercurius was surrounded by a lush garden, which, much like the rest of the city, was adorned with a great quantity of flowers, possessing flowerbs and, moreover, artfully arranged plants and neat little hedges, which had square hollow spaces on their edges, storing ornately decorated street lanterns, with wavy poles ending in large orbs, with circular objects surrounding them, seemingly floating. The streets there were adorned with mosaics, which consisted of a variety of small, flat rectangular stones arranged to resemble semicircles. In front of the palace stood a fountain, surrounded by a level area of earth, both around and at the bottom. Jets of water rose up from both the fountain and the bottom, with the ancient also housing some plants, or possibly plant statues, on its base. In the mountains to the west, the great magical tournament was to be held at the Domus Flow. The place appeared to be a large round open battle arena and had no roof over the summit. This building has numerous arches in its walls and a large entrance. The Domus Flow also had 4 gigantic statues, each bearing a staff with a large circle on top, facing inwards, surrounding the Domus Flow. 4 gigantic chains could also be seen around the Domus Flow. Each beginning a circular metal structure above the ground around the Domus Flow, joining circles behind the statues, and reaching down to another circular metal structure in the ground. And in the middle of the city stood the strongest team of the Fairy Tail clan, Team Natsu. 5 of them lay sprawled on the ground in the middle of the street, exhausted from all the rigorous training they'd undergone to accustom themselves to their newfound powers. Scarlet Urza, meanwhile, stood perfectly composed beside her enormous luggage, a map of the capital in her hands. Boy, I still don't feel that big about all this. The grey color said through gritted teeth, trying to push himself up to his feet, we don't know for sure if that spelling will work. He still remembered every detail about the pain he had to examine to increase his own capacity and open his second origin. He didn't know if this was really worth it or not. Yes, but it really seems like my magic power has increased. Lucy said with a long sigh. All my joints are still totally sore, though. Geez, aren't you guys embarrassed? Urza asked as she looked away from the map and turned her eyes to her teammates. Why are you so incredibly thin, Urza? Lucy asked, a bead of sweat dripping down her face as she looked at the taller woman. She probably had her second origin open from the beginning, the gray color concluded, and Lucy could only nod her head in agreement. This makes sense. Natsu agreed without reservation before he stood up from his position on the ground, raising his hand above his head and asking the strongest fairy tale woman, "May I ask you something?" "Move on." "What's he doing here?" The pink-haired dragon assassin shouted dramatically, throwing his hand at Naruto, who was standing next to Urza's luggage, reading the latest issue of the Weekly Sorcerer's magazine, while eating a large hot dog, something he snatched from Natsu before he could even take a bite. "Didn't he say he didn't want to participate in the Grand Magic Games with us?" After witnessing, and first experimenting with, the powers of the newest fairy tale member, Natsu had decided that his guild needed someone like him to ensure their victory in the tournament. However, much to Natsu's surprise and Urza's anticipation, when he asked Naruto to join his team, Naruto refused without hesitation, claiming he didn't want to waste his time fighting for the guild. His response caused Natsu to explode with anger, but a flash of Urza's glare was more than enough to shut him down and send him back away in fear. "You know, as her teacher, it's only natural for me to come here with my student," Naruto replied simply, while Urza nodded with a small laugh. "This tournament is a perfect opportunity for Urza to test her powers, and I really want to see how well she fares against someone other than me, who is much stronger than her." He finished with a broad, smug smile. "And you said my head was quite large?" Urza said sarcastically, but Naruto simply gave her a sly smile in response. "Anyway, since you must be seeing the results of our training here, does that mean I can only use ninja techniques in battles?" she asked, crossing her weapons over her chest. It would be too bad if he wouldn't allow her to use her magic. She was both a mage and a ninja. She didn't want to give up one for the other. She also wanted to fight for her guild to the best of her abilities, and with everything she had, something Urza believed she had to do to restore glory to the Fairy Tail Guild. "Don't worry about this. You can use whatever you want as long as you can come out on top." The scarlet-headed mage nodded with a laugh. "After all, you're a mage first and a kunoichi second, right?" "Yes, you're right." Urza laughed, nodding her head. He might be strict with her education. He might be a pain in the ass at times, but in the end, Urza had to admit that he was a very good teacher, as well as a very understanding one. "But of course, you lose just one match and there'll be hell to pay for it." Urza nervously took a step back when she saw a smug, self-satisfied smile cross his face. "I'll try my best then." A forced laugh was all she could manage. Naruto then looked around and caught sight of the third fairy tale master, Makarov, with Asuka sitting on his shoulders, her father following closely behind them. Motor and Droy were with them as well. Those two weren't going to participate in the Grand Magic Game, since they too were afraid of undergoing the same painful examination Natsu had to go through to unlock his second origin. "So you guys have finally done it." The master greeted them with a huge laugh. I didn't expect you to come here too, Naruto," he said intensely, looking at the blonde. "I have my reason for coming here," he replied simply. "Alright, go ahead and get on with this already," Makarov said, crossing his weapons over his chest. "Hahaha. We'll show you the power of Fairy Tail," Makarov announced, laughing confidently. "Did you hear this, Fairy Tail?" "Where? Them? Does the small weak guild always claim last place? The FT kufu for you guys who go get last place again this year too. Everyone knows that Sabretooth is going to dominate this year too. DRRR. Natsu gritted his fist in anger, evident with rage on the part of the citizens around them. "Whoever wants to laugh at them, let them go ahead and laugh," Makarov said with a confident smile. "We'll just wait and see who gets the last laugh." He then turned to look at Team Natsu, who he had decided would be the team to participate in the Magnificent Magic Game, since other teams couldn't. "Alright everyone, the first day of the Magnificent Magic Game will take place tomorrow morning, but I've been informed that all participants must return to their accommodations by noon, so make sure you're back in place before then, okay?" "I see. It's just like that Cinderella story then," Lucy said with a bright laugh. "You know, the story would be much easier to understand if Cinderella could have approached him and told him everything he should know about her," Naruto indicated, making Lucy look at him with a nervous laugh. "They danced all night and what, they stared at each other the whole time. Couldn't Cinderella at least tell him something about you? It's a little creepy, don't you think?" Lucy wanted to argue, but before she could, he changed the subject with a simple question, "So, have you finished my book yet?" "Oh, of course, I'm sorry it took so long." Lucy nodded as she reached into her bag and pulled out the Naruto book she'd lent her. "Actually, I finished it last night. It's really good, so I wanted to enjoy it thoroughly." "Again, I'm glad you like this." Naruto laughed and put his book away. Have you finished my books?" Lucy asked, fidgeting nervously, and followed up when Naruto nodded his head. "What do you think of them?" "Honest opinion?" Lucy nodded. Well, I can see you're not a professional. There are a lot of plot holes in your early work and your writing style is a bit inexperienced. Lucy's laughter subsided slightly. She had expected it but was still saddened to hear it. Anyway, I could see a lot of improvement in your later work, so all I can say right now is that you have great potential to become an author who will write best-selling novels in the near future. Is this so? Lucy's expression immediately brightened when she heard this. Thank you. Only telling the truth. Naruto laughed in response. Shut it up, guys. Natsu jumped between two of them with a toothy grin, his earlier frustration with Naruto gone. Stop talking nonsense. We've come all the way to this town and still got so much time left, we might as well hit the town. He grabbed Lucy and Fellas before running off. He also tried to grab Naruto, but the immortal shinobi easily shook off his grip and stood in the same spot. Hey. Do you still know where the accommodations are? Urza shouted after them. Honeybone right? Lucy asked loudly. We'll be there for 12 for sure. With that, the trio ran off. Excited, aren't you? Naruto asked before reaching into the inside pocket of his jacket and pulling out a thick book with the word rulebook written across the cover. He then handed it to Urza, whose eyes widened in shock at the book's thickness. Urza, tournament rulebook final before midnight. I read this. Urza stammered. Before midnight. Don't worry Urza, I'll help her. The imposter stepped forward with a laugh, wearing windproof reading glasses. Magic, how magical of them. While Urza laughed gratefully at her friend, Naruto could only groan in annoyance. Alright then, do what you must before midnight. He pointed his hand at her before walking away. Where are you going, sensei? Urza asked, but Naruto simply waved his hand above his head without turning around before disappearing into the crowd of saffron people. So Urza? Makarov stepped forward and asked Urza with a small laugh, holding her hands behind her backside. It seems things have been going well for the two of you. Ah. Yes, this does the master. Urza nodded her head with a laugh. The others separated far away after this, with Urza heading to Honeybone's lodgings, with a mandate to read the Naruto rule book they had given her. Wandering around the streets of Saffron, Naruto turned his head, double-checking his surroundings to make sure no one, especially fairy tale mages, was following him or looking at him strangely. Talk about paranoid. After Naruto was certain he wasn't attracting any unnecessary attention, the blonde boy began searching for his favorite demon, Sayla, who he was sure had been following him since morning. He felt bad that he had to tell her to stay, because first, he wasn't sure about her opinions on demons like Sayla, and second, he didn't want her to feel uncomfortable around the race and people she hated so much. It took Urza 2 weeks to fully trust the demonstrator, and even longer for him to later consider the strongest female fairy tale mage as someone worthy of his attention, despite knowing perfectly well who she was. Sayla had become a little more civil with the human after the expenses of the 7 years spent with him, but he wasn't sure how she would react, which she probably doesn't show visibly, if he introduced her to someone other than Urza. Spotting Sayla, who was standing by a local gift shop, Naruto quickly made his way over. Sayla wore a dark cloak with a hood large enough to cover her horns. The cloak concealed most of her features, except for her face, which wore a disgusted expression as she glared angrily at the people around her. However, seeing him approaching her, Sayla immediately got better on top of him. There you are. Naruto smiled broadly as he stood in front of her. Master? Sayla lowered her head. How are you? I'm fine. Naruto laughed before asking, have you been following me since this morning? Yes, I love you. When I said you should stay, I didn't really mean for you to follow me around, you know. Naruto sighed as he put his hands in his pockets and looked at her. You're free to do whatever you want, so why don't you head home or find something fun to do? Since I want to make sure that those people won't bother you, Master, Sayla replied, the expression on her face remaining unchanged. Don't worry, they aren't. He smiled broadly, shaking his head. Besides, even if they were, you wouldn't abandon your escape and put the brakes on each of them, would you? Knowing her, it was probably what she would do if she had the chance and permission. Anyway, follow me, there's something I want to talk to you about. He walked away and gestured for her to follow him. What is the master? This is the reason I'm here. Make it clear that it happened exactly 400 years ago, during the Dragon Festival. They are late. Wearing her favorite Heart Cruise pajamas, Urza grumbled slightly as she glanced at the cards in her hands, her eyes half open. It was an hour before midnight and none of her teammates had yet arrived at Honeybone, the lodging assigned to the fairy tale team. The guards had left as soon as they'd reviewed the rulebook, leaving Urza alone in her space. With her reading glasses on, it took the two of them no more than 2 hours to examine the rulebook and recall a few more important points of the grand magic game. Unfortunately, after that, aside from cleaning some of her weapons to ensure they remained in top condition, Urza couldn't find anything else interesting to do. She checked her surroundings to make sure there was no suspicious activity, but she couldn't find anything out of the ordinary. Hunch. punch. Then suddenly, just as she was about to drop her cards, she was playing with them to kill time, she heard someone knocking on the door. Rising from her position on the floor, Urza quickly made her way across the space, hoping it was Natsu and the rest of the gang. "Arrival," she called when they knocked again. Turning the doorknob, Urza opened it and her eyes widened in surprise when she saw Naruto standing in front of her with a bag in his hands. "Naruto-sensei. What are you doing here?" "Just this once, I'll allow you to call me Naruto," Naruto said as he raised the bag he held at eye level. "I hope you're up for some late night food. I brought snacks." "Ah, thank you. I'm a little hungry right now." Urza laughed as she took the bag from Naruto's hand. Peeking inside, Urza's eyes sparkled with excitement when she saw a small, white box containing her favorite strawberry cheesecake. "Please come in." She quickened her pace and urged him to enter. "This place isn't so bad," Naruto commented as he took off his shoes and made his way into the space. "When I heard that Honeybone was one of the worst places a guild participating in the Grand Magic Games could get, I thought this was a dump or something." "Yes, it's very nice." Urza nodded in agreement. "Did you know that Sabretooth gets to stay at the Saffron Garden?" Urza shook her head. "This is the best hotel in the city." Conversation about the perks of being the #1 guild in Fiore. "Not for long, though," Urza declared confidently, "the fairy tale will rise to the top this year." "Alright, we'll think about this." Naruto smiled broadly before smearing the cards lying on the floor. "They look like you're in need of company. Want to have a few rounds with me?" "Of course, the sense is free to unite Naruto." With that, the two of them settled in. Naruto picked up his cards and looked at what he had while she was doing the same thing, only she was trying to form a plan to hit him with the cards she had. "So, have you finished reading the rulebook?" "I have," Urza answered his question. "This is fine then. What do you think?" "Well, that's very interesting." Urza shrank back. Since the competition changes every year and no one knows what they'll have to deal with until right before it starts, victory will be decided by those who can master several different classes of competition. "I guess of the team members, I'm the one who can face all the tournament's challenges." "I agree." Naruto nodded, tossing a card aside. "Based on the competitions of the past few years, it seems there'll definitely be some infighting among the guild members. To tell you the truth, in my opinion, aside from the infighting, you can easily dominate the entire competition with just what you've learned from me. There are many strong mages participating in the tournament, you know." She indicated, "There's Beiko of Quattro Cerberus, those 5 extraordinary mages of Sabretooth who are responsible for their current #1 ranking, and even Jura of the Saint of Lamia's scale mages. I should keep my guard up around them rather than take them lightly because I have a few tricks up my sleeve. Those tricks can easily take someone's life and do more harm than good if you're not careful," Naruto reminded her. Some techniques he had taught Urza, while not yet close to A-class, aside from the Rasengan or S-class, were extremely dangerous in the current era as they were almost as powerful as the most advanced spellcasting. "You don't want to deliver a killing blow, do you?" "Yes, but I heard there's protective barriers around the arena to prevent competitors from facing life-threatening situations, so I don't have to hold back." Naruto nodded. "Speaking of which, when will you start teaching me the stronger techniques?" So far, the Rasengan was the highest aligned technique she had learned from him and she still couldn't use any lower aligned ninjutsu as powerfully as he could. "When you're ready." Naruto answered simply before she could say anything, he continued, "And for your information, I knew nothing other than Henge, the transformation technique, Kawarimi, the body replacement technique, a couple of basic wind styles and some arbitrary techniques, and Rasengan before I was 19. Urza's eyes widened in surprise. Naruto thought he shouldn't tell her about the number of Rasengan variations he could use at that age because it wouldn't fit with what he was trying to teach her. "You see, it's not about the ranks, it's about how effectively you can use them. Even a simple henge can create a distraction that can fool even a primordial god." "Fine, if you say so." This was the only answer Urza could accept. The game continued for a few more rounds, with Naruto always being the one who won, before Urza grew impatient and began pacing back and forth in space, waiting for her teammate to return. Around 11:45, everyone except Wendy stood up and Urza immediately pulled them to her knees. While Gray and Lucy looked on guiltily, Natsu trembled, growling and cursing in frustration. "You guys seriously, you're late," Scarlet Urza said, crossing her weapons beneath her broad chest, scolding 3 younger mages kneeling on the floor before her. "Where have you been wandering around all this time?" she demanded, glaring at them. Naruto, meanwhile, sat on his bed writing something in the small notebook with a pencil, which he had returned to its place as soon as he walked back to his own quarters. "Just another boring dinner," said the gray color with a nervous laugh. "Well, this is complicated, well I mean Earth," Lucy tried to explain, but all she could manage were some incompetent words. "You guys found the saber-toothed twin dragons, right?" Naruto asked. Wandering around the streets with Sayla, Naruto had seen two saber-tooth mages displaying their strength against the guilds, not too far from where Natsu, Lucy, and Fellas were playing. He had seen them before. They were the saber-toothed twin dragons, whose magics were Light Dragon Slayer and Shadow Dragon Slayer. "How did you know?" Lucy asked in surprise. "Ah. I'm going to get those guys back, no matter what it takes." Natsu and Fellas yelled in frustration, balling their hands into fists. "You'll have your chance pretty soon, Natsu," Naruto said, turning his eyes to look at the clock. It was 11:45. This is almost midnight. I wonder what the organizers have in store for us. Anyway, where's Wendy? Urza asked, looking around. "We decided she'll be our backup." "That's right." Lucy nodded. "She's late, it's almost 12, though, that little girl is there all alone," Lucy said worriedly. "I hope she's alright." "Don't worry, she'll be fine." Fellas spoke up, "Since Carla is with her, I don't think they're lost." "Do you want me to go look for you?" Naruto suggested before he began counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. You need a team of 5 to participate in the tournament, you know. Tick-tock. "I should have suggested this a little earlier," Naruto grumbled sarcastically as he glanced at his clock. It was 12 o'clock. The church bell at a local church began to chime. "What's going to happen?" Lucy asked, a little nervous in her tone. The whole city had become quiet and the only things that could be heard were the tolls on the ring road. "All guilds here for the grand magic game." A loud, playful voice that could be heard throughout the city hit them, startling the fairy tale team. They immediately ran outside to see what was happening. Above the city was a hologram of a short man wearing a pumpkin head with large eyes and mouth, a striped shirt with white cuffs, a black shirt underneath, a dark cape with white trim and a white underside, a pair of white trousers, white boots, white gloves, and a dark witch-like hat. "Good morning." "So?" Natsu gasped in amazement. "He's massive." "Show off," Naruto said as he leaned against the balcony. To reduce the participating teams from 113 down to 8. The pumpkin said, "We shall now begin a preliminary event." Preliminary. The gray color screamed in the crash. Nobody said anything about this. Every year, more and more people come to participate in this event. Unfortunately, this is a sign that this event was starting to be taken too lightly. The pumpkin began to dance around and said in a song-like tone, "This year, we've brought the number of final competing teams down to 8. He then pointed his index finger above and the entire town began to stir, startling everyone. Each accommodation for the participants begins to rise above the ground. You will now compete against each other. The goal is the event ground, Domus Flow. The first 8 teams to do so will participate in the event. Your accommodation will be the starting line for the preliminary round. After this, paths began to be created above the balconies of the accommodations all around the capital of Fiori and all connected to the place where the preliminaries would occur, a massive structure that floats in the sky. The sense is free to use any magic you like because there are no restrictions as long as you can be one of the first 8 teams to do so. But if all 5 members of your team don't make it there, you still lose. And 1 more thing, the pumpkin said with a dark little smile. We take no responsibility for anyone who loses their life in the labyrinth. The pumpkin shouted and the entire city lit up, raising lanterns. The preliminary event of the magnificent magical game, Sky Labyrinth, has begun. "Oh no, we don't have enough members," Lucy exclaimed in horror as she looked at her equipment. "Where the hell is Wendy?" The gray color gritted her teeth, asking in both frustration and concern. "We're not going to do it like this." Urza could only say this as her mind raced with thoughts. "Why are you looking at this?" Naruto said simply as he turned his head, glancing at other teams already heading towards the Sky Labyrinth on their respective paths. "You guys better get going, I mean, you're not going to." He then stood up and turned his head to the side to look at Urza, who was looking at him hopefully. "Why are you looking at me like that?" It didn't take him long to realize his intention. "No, not at all. We have no choice." Urza shook her head before the refrain, "Naruto, we need 5 members to participate. You have to join us or the fairy tale will lose." The others widened their eyes and began to look at Naruto the same way. "I've told you multiple times already. Tell me about this mess," he said, holding both my hands firmly. "I can find Wendy for you. It'll only take a second." But before he could go anywhere, Urza grabbed his shirt sleeve, stopping him. "Wendy can join later. Each team can have 1 reserve member." The whole team nodded in agreement. "How do I bring Juvia here?" Naruto suggested. "How about imposition? They should be cheering for the team here, right? Are we really having this conversation?" Natsu asked as he pointed his hand at the others have already acquired the Sky Labyrinth. "You said you didn't want to participate because this was going to waste your time. I'm guessing you're wasting our time here." He snarled, shoving Naruto's chest with every word he said. "Forget it, guys." He spun around and jumped onto the platform. "Happy's a rightful member of Fairy Tail. He can be a member of our team too. Go get out of here before any other team can take our place. Always. Happy saying and flew after Natsu. Wait for me. Lucy shouted and quickly chased after the dragon slayer and the cat with the grey color. Urza jumped onto the balcony and followed her teammate, but before she did, she turned her head and flashed a glare at Naruto. What? Naruto asked awkwardly. He didn't need his ability to tell what Urza was feeling, because the moment he looked into her eyes, he could see the hurt, the anger, and most of all, the disappointment. This was the first time she had ever looked at him like that. Even when he told Urza that her precious teacher was an asshole, even when he pushed her through his awful education to make her stronger, she hadn't looked at him with those eyes. This almost made him shudder with surprise. Urza left with her team after this, completely forgetting about him. What is it all about? Naruto mused as he turned and made his way back into the lodging. He was alone now. Which would only lead to feelings of loneliness. Thinking about them, for the first time in a very long time, he began to hate those feelings again. This was strange because Naruto thought he had gotten used to those feelings by now. And Urza had looked at him, full of disappointment. He had disappointed in him. Damn it. Naruto cursed as he punched through the wall of Honeybone, making the entire building shake violently. Damn it. He yelled and spun around, running as fast as he could, constantly cursing as loudly as he could in the hope of releasing his frustration. Damn it. Naruto became a blurry figure as he leaped onto the path that connected Honeybone to the Sky Labyrinth. It didn't take him long to catch up to Team Natsu, and when he did, he grabbed all four of them, much to their surprise. Naruto? Lucy asked in surprise. Hell man, slow down. Natsu yelled as he felt sick. He and the Grey One were being held by Naruto's weapons, while Urza and Lucy, who immediately wrapped their weapons around Naruto's neck, tried to hang on for dear life when he threw them onto his shoulders. I swear, Natsu, if you throw up on me and ruin my clothes, I'll buck your balls off, you got this. Natsu immediately slapped his hands over his mouth, trying his best to keep his dinner in his stomach. Hat. Naruto looked at fellas, who, even at maximum speed, found it difficult to keep it from lifting him up. Wendy and her girlfriend found it, I'll take it from here. Always. Happy shouted his slogan excitedly before taking flight. What are you doing, Naruto? Urza asked as she looked at him with her eyes widening in surprise. This is for you, sensei, girl. He yelled over the wind, and also, why the buck did this bucking cat choose to take the freaking position when I bucking rejected it? The number of curses in one question alone was enough for them to know how frustrated he was at this moment. A cat. A freaking cat. You think a cat bucks as well as I do? I say buck it. I'll take the position and join your team. Happy now? You know, your motives make absolutely no sense. The grey color laughed quietly and nervously. You have a problem with cats, buddy. You all owe me big time, got it? He grunted and three of them nodded their heads, one weaker than the other two. Thank you, Naruto. Urza laughed softly as she tightened her weapons around his neck. This is for you, sensei. Don't worry, just this once. This place is so confusing. Lucy cried out as she did her best not to fall off the gliding platform she was leaning on, her blonde hair to one side swiveling as she turned her head, searching for the right path. They had gotten through the maze and were currently finding their way to the arena. Naruto, who had calmed down and regained his composure, stood on higher ground, a massive pillar 20 feet higher than where the others stood, and explored the area with his eyes. We have to advance on the east, Urza instructed. Lucy grinned. I've got this. She pulled out a silver key and waved it above her head. Open. Compass gate, Pixis. In a bright flash of light, a small penguin-like creature with a compass on its head appeared, flapping its tiny wings. Right, Pixis, said Lucy, leaning forward, which way is this? After a few turns of the compass, Pixis squawked a cheer and pointed. The squadron followed its steady gaze and saw platforms upon platforms of difficult climbing. Actually, Urza mentioned, I have a compass right here. The fairy queen held up a small silver circle with a red and white needle in the center. This made Mage Celeste laugh and have to summon Pixis. We should get the move going. I saw some fights ahead of us, Naruto indicated. We'll try to avoid battles as much as possible, since we don't want to waste any more time than before. The others nodded in agreement. The labyrinth truly made things difficult for the fairy tale team, even with Naruto's help and Urza's compass. The grey color continually formed ice staircases for each of them to climb, and at several points, they stumbled upon other guilds. Even if they tried to avoid conflict, it was inevitable. The group attempted to create a map, and 3 of the 5 members were keen on the idea of stealing maps from other groups. But once the labyrinth began to shift, Naruto immediately knew the maps were useless. This thing is moving. Lucy howled and fell off the platform. Natsu immediately chased after his friend and grabbed her before she could fall, but he too fell off the platform when it shifted again. Natsu tried to grab hold, but the platform twisted around again, this time vertically, and flung his hand away. Both the salamander and the celestial mage gasped in shock as they began to plummet. Luckily for them, Naruto appeared in a blurry form and grabbed Natsu's wrist, saving them both. "There you go." Naruto grinned with satisfaction and pulled Natsu and Lucy on top. His chakra allowed him to plant his feet firmly on the platform no matter the angle. "Be more careful." The two breathed a sigh of relief and nodded their heads. "The man, I wish Fellas is here, he can take us safely to the Domus Flow." "You said it yourself, Natsu. Fellas is a member of Fairy Tail and is considered a member of the team, so he can't come here." Naruto then suggested, much to Natsu's dismay, "I can just grab you and get you all over there in a few seconds, you know." "Hell no man, I almost threw up back there." Natsu immediately crossed his weapons in front of him. "Sue yourself." So? Urza began to slide backwards from her platform, and her last member, the grey color, had quite a bit of trouble on his own platform. "This place is a mess," was his comment before they helped him up to his feet. After a few minutes of travel, the Fairy Tail team encountered a group of men with a very familiar guild sign. "Twilight Ogre." Lucy gasped. The man, who appeared to be their leader, said as his lip curled above his head, "Fairy Tail. You really think you have a chance?" He never finished his sentence. "I don't have time for this," Naruto declared, leaping forward with his feet brought together in a teardrop kick, which then connected with the man's face and sent him flying. The remaining limbs snarled and gripped their weapons tightly, but they were met with a shot of ice cannonball, with Natsu's high-speed burning fist to the head. After dealing with the rest of the ogres, it didn't take them long to find a long path that led to a huge gate. Encouraged by the prospect that they were close, the whole team ran faster. It didn't take them long to reach the exit, where Mato La Calabaza was standing waiting for them. "Well, that was easy." Natsu smiled broadly as the team stood before Mato, who clapped his hands rapidly to congratulate them on passing the preliminaries. "Just like we did." The color gray was quickly asked. "Were we first, right?" Mato rubbed his palms together nervously. "Not exactly. The expected triumph that the Fairy Tail team had hoped for didn't come. You got 4th place." The hopeful laughter of this Fairy Tail member faded. "Well, at least we didn't make it last." Naruto said before the request, "I take this, but they don't also allow us to know who went through this before us, right?" "Yes, you'll hear from the others tomorrow morning." He laughed, nodding his head in response. "Now, come, he ushered each one in through the entrance. "You all deserve a good rest of the night." Around 7 o'clock the next morning, this was the moment they had been waiting for. The citizens of Saffron gathered inside the Domus Flow, excited for the upcoming event. The annual magical festival finally begins. The magnificent magical tournament. And the crowds were as wild as the announcement, eagerly awaiting the reveal of the teams that had made it through the preliminary round. "I'm Chapati Lola here. I'll be covering today's events." He introduced himself. Chapati was a short, thin, middle-aged man with pale skin. His smooth face was rather unusual, square and very large when compared to his small eyes, thin eyebrows, nose, mouth and chin, all bunched together and located in the middle of his face. For attire, he wore a simple dark suit with a light shirt underneath, dark trousers, and a tie that read, "The Magnificent Magical Games." "We are honored to have Yazima-san, a former member of the Magical Council, as our commentator. It's a thrill to have you here, Yazima-san." The old man gave a nod of acknowledgement. "The pleasure is all mine," Yazima replied, and Chapati continued introducing the day's special guests. "During the day, someone's guest, we are privileged to have Miss Fiori, Jenny Realite of the Blue Pegasus." Loud exclamations were heard, and much applause from admirers could also be heard as she made her comment. "We're going to win this year," Jenny declared with overflowing confidence. Inside, 4 of the 5 members of Team Fairy Tail were dressed in purple and white uniforms, but with different designs. Urza wore a dress open in the front, revealing her midriff and short shorts. Lucy wore a white skirt and a purple top, while Natsu wore a long-sleeved shirt that covered his left arm but left his right arm exposed. Gray, however, wasn't wearing his shirt at all. They were all waiting for their names to be called. Naruto, meanwhile, had put his clothes away and had no intention of changing them. Wendy, their reserve member, was currently resting in their infirmary. Fellas had found her unconscious in the street last night, attacked by what she claimed was a small black creature, which Naruto had a feeling Sayla would know what it was. She had lost a lot of magic power, which greatly weakened her physical strength, but with Purusuka's help, she should be able to make a quick recovery. Alright, contestants are arriving. First up is Team 8 in the preliminary event. Go and welcome them, the Hell's Army Hounds, Cerberus in 4th. Wild. And some of them bent over to show off some muscles. The 7th place is a female guild. The Ocean Dancers. Mermaid Heel. Some of its members waved her blue kisses while the leader looked on nonchalantly. Their new guild, Lucy informed them, with only one Class S mage. I didn't know they could do the preliminaries too. The climb, the sixth place is the wings that glow in the dark, the blue Pegasus. Hiya. Eve Kun. Hibiki Sama. Nguyen. Many girls screamed as they all struck their famously handsome male poses. However, Ichiya and the person in the bunny suit didn't make a very good impression. Fifth place, Goddess of Love and Destroyers of War, Sacred Lamia Scala. Lamia the Scale, led by Lion, made her entrance. Fifth place. Were you holding back, guys, you idiots? Her elderly guild leader raged as she glared at the sidelines. Well done everyone. Despite the fact they always got last place for the past few years, they managed to pull off an incredible comeback this year, claiming the fourth row this year. Go and welcome the wild and rowdy fairy tale team. Naruto took the lead and made his entrance. The crowd booed them, but unlike his team, Naruto paid them no mind and continued making his way to the center of the stadium with his hands in his pockets. Izima, who saw this, gave them a thumbs up. This is wonderful. Congratulations, Fairy Tail. Hooray, hooray. Fairy Tail. The entire guild shouted from the band lines as they cheered with big signs and all. Isn't this pointy gray color stained next to his master? Hooray, hooray, Fairy Tail, she exclaimed and punched a fist in the air as her legs swung in the air. Van Naruto. I love Mavis. The entire guild screamed in surprise as their eyes bulged out of their sockets. Mavis wore an absolutely confident face as she laughed. I must salute you here. No one can see me unless they are Fairy Tail, so don't worry about this. Is it how so? He said nervously. Who informed her? Naruto grunted, pointing his hand at Mavis, who was still acting as innocent as ever. It's a relief to see the first one come here to encourage us. Natsu said as the gray one nodded in agreement with him. Even if she is a spirit, Lucy added. The announcer continued, third place, what a success for a new guild to achieve such a high ranking. Welcome to the Midnight Raiders, the Raven's Tail. Crow's Tail. Natsu yelled out in the crash. This is the guild founded by the master's son Ivan. Urza explained to Lucy, who nodded. But I think that she calmed down and Makarov finished the sentence for her. The Dark Guild. Makarov glared furiously. Should we let them participate? He raged as they all tried to restrain him, while Mavis observed thoughtfully. I really feel a malevolent force. She nodded her head. Isn't this a Dark Guild? Someone in the crowd whispered worriedly and the announcers began to explain. Well. According to official bulletins, the Raven's Tail has existed for over 7 years and it was recently approved as an official guild. Then this isn't a Dark Guild since it's been approved by the Guild League. Yuzima finished the announcement for him. Hearing this, Makarov was indescribably pissed, with veins throbbing violently on his forehead. Ivan, what are you planning? How did you do it? The man in question, who sat behind the crowd, smiled wickedly with satisfaction. I have waited patiently for so long, father. All for this day to come. And next up, my. Can the fairies' broken wings be repaired and allow them to take to the skies again? Go and welcome back the Fairy Tail Team B. Her declaration led the crowd into stunned silence. Wah. Was all the Fairy Tail team could manage to say. Now, a team like theirs stared at their friends, who had formed a team of their own. What? They all exclaimed in utter shock. Even Naruto was surprised by this sudden turn of events. Look. Agiel. Juvia. Laxus. What's with that haircut? Another Fairy Tail team, the crowd whispered among themselves, confused by the fact that they had 2 teams participating in the tournament. Why is Mystigan here? Urza stared at him before she decided to ask. You say you're Jello. He quickly put a finger to his lips, signaling her to stifle her voice, as so many members of the Magic Council watched. Is it really you? Or not? Gray and Natsu shouted at the same time. What a surprise. Naruto said as he looked at Mira, who looked as beautiful and radiant as ever. I didn't know you guys could make it here and have such a striking entrance too. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Mira laughed foolishly. You joined Team Natsu? What a surprise, Naruto-kun. Unfortunately. He shrank back. Did you hear about Wendy? Mira immediately stopped laughing foolishly and nodded gravely. Well, they didn't have enough members to participate. Since I'm a very generous person, I decided to lend them a hand. He joked, trying to lift his spirits. You know, forming this team is really the master's idea. We want to have a team with the strongest members. Mira laughed, changing the subject. We wanted to have you as our reserve, but we couldn't find you anywhere, so we had to ask Juvia and Mystigan there instead. She gestured her hand to the masked man before turning her attention back to him. You guys did 4th place, not too bad. Mira said, but he could tell she was joking. Don't get ahead of yourself. Naruto smiled contentedly. I don't know about matchups, but we should fight each other in a battle, and for your information, we could beat you, you know. Mira then glanced around. Natsu was facing Gajiel in obvious competition, Juvia was trying to embrace the grey color, Urza was talking to Jel and clearly wasn't happy with him there. Lucy, meanwhile, was terrifying when she was left with Laxus, who was looking at the place where his father sat. Well, it seems two of us are paired up with each other now. I'm sorry to face you in a real battle, Naruto-kun. Don't worry, Naruto said lazily. I won't hurt you much anyway. Mira frowned before noticing the forehead protector on Naruto's forehead. But still I expect another fight with you, if you know what I mean. The white-haired demon laughed excitedly at the thought. Doing this in front of this crowd? No thanks. Even my demon, I'm not that naughty. She then glanced at Urza for a second before the request, so, having him. But before Mira could ask her question, the announcer continued his team introduction after he had finished explaining to the crowd why they allowed Fairy Tail to have one more team. Alright. For the last team to make it through the preliminary round. The crowd began to go wild. That's right, you all know who they are. The strongest. The invincible. The complete dominators. Sabretooth. Team Sabretooth, led by Sting, one of the twin dragon slayers from Fairy Tail's currently strongest guild, appeared to the booming welcome of the spectators. Everyone cheered out for them, as expected from Fairy Tail's #1 guild. Here they come. Natsu hardened his eyes as he looked at his strongest opponents. We're waiting for you, Natsu-san. Sting waved his index finger to the pink-haired dragon slayer. Don't do that thing that touches me, you bastard, Gajiel grumbled mysteriously. Gajiel, Roho said, keeping a calm expression on his face. That's the strongest guild in Fiori, the grey-colored man nodded his head. Alright. Thank you all for waiting, here's your lineup. A stone council member, shot from the ground, announced, the magnificent magic games have been revealed. The crowd erupted in cheers once more as Chapati began to explain the rules. The tournament would be divided into 5 days, with 2 events held each day. A battle and a hidden event. For the hidden event, each team would receive a number of points based on their final position. For the battles, the winning team would get 10 points and the losing team wouldn't get any at all. If the fight ended in a draw, both teams would get 5 points. The battles would be decided by the organizers based on fan votes. However, they arranged some battles according to the wishes of the King of Fiori and it would be set up as follows. Team A vs Team B. Team C vs Team D. Team E vs Team F. Team G vs Team H. Without further ado, I bring you the magnificent magic game. The opening of the game. Chapati shouted. They're going to begin, hidden. He then lowered his voice, so he wasn't as loud as before. Each team has 1 participant. After each team submits their player, I will explain the rules. Cerberus and Jaeger in 4th, while Siren's heel had a girl, Beth, whose hair was tied in 2 pigtails behind her, enter the first competition. Raven's tail had Narpeting in the lead, and Nguyen represented Blue Pegasus. Rufus, nicknamed the Red Moon Singing Bard, removed his hat and greeted the excited crowd with a laugh. If it's smaller it's better, then maybe Yuka or I should go. Shelia suggested, looking at her teammate with thick eyebrows. No, we should get this from the very beginning. Lion shook his head and gave a confident laugh. I'll go. Yes, in that case, the grey color stepped forward, looking at Lion, I'll go too. However, before he could take another step, Naruto surprised everyone when he suddenly took a step forward, grabbed the grey color by the top of his head, and pulled him back to step in front. No. The name of this game is a secret, so it's all about caution. Strategic oratory, someone with the best movement skills should participate. Naruto explained to the team before turning and looking at Urza. Urza, you handle this. What? Lucy, Natsu, and Gray asked in surprise. Even other members of Fairy Tail were surprised by their decision. Send Urza out on a whim? Makarov asked, tilting his head to the side as he crossed his weapons over his chest. And also, while she is one of the strongest, is she the most convenient for this event? Each understood that the members of Team Natsu were destructive by nature and they tended to fight head-on enemies rather than stealthily moving behind them. Well, Naruto is the best option, but I trust your decision. Mavis chuckled, nodding her head. You'll just have to wait and see. It seems they're not going to change their minds, Laxus concluded after observing Team Natsu. He then turned to Juvia, whom he believed to be the most suitable member of the team to fight in the game. She had the least destructive power among them and was also the shortest member of the team. Juvia, can you go first? I can. Juvia nodded her head rather nervously. She had fought Urza once before and it hadn't ended well for her because Urza had weapons to deal with her water body, which was a resistance to physical attacks. Don't lose, even if your opponent is Urza, Gajiel said, patting his friend on the shoulder. I'm going to. Are you sure, sensei? Urza asked, looking quite nervous. Sure. Naruto nodded. They consider this a test. Regardless of who you go out here, don't get caught, got it? God help it. Urza nodded her head and took a step forward, joining the other competitors. Other teams had already left the field, leaving only those who were going to fight in the first game behind. Most of the members of Team Fairy Tail had done the same, but Naruto was still standing in the same spot, watching Urza as she walked towards Juvia. "Naruto, go ahead," Natsu called, looking back at the blonde boy. "Hold on for a second." The blonde boy answered loudly from behind, before calling out to Urza, "Urza, come here." "Yes?" Urza asked as she walked towards him. "That's my thought, I can't let him fight without this." He reached into his pockets, searching for a specific item. "Just how many things do you have in those pockets?" Urza asked incredulously. "A lot." He answered simply. "They're all that's important. Well, I can use the new joke to store them, I want to keep them as close to me as possible." "Ah, there we go." He laughed and took a comm bandage from a metal plate and a black ribbon from the cloth. There was a swirl symbol that looked remarkably like it on a leaf with a long horizontal scratch across the symbol. "What is this?" Urza asked curiously. "It's a forehead protector," Naruto replied with a laugh. "Well, you've been trained in our arts, it doesn't officially make you a ninja, or a kunoichi to be specific." He held up the metal plate. "The forehead protector is one of the most important parts of our tradition, proof of someone's merit to the name ninja." He stated gently before presenting it, holding the headband by its metal plate. "So, doing this means that?" Urza gasped in shock. "This bandage belonged to the most important people in my life, and now, it belongs to you." Naruto laughed. "Congratulations, because from this day forward, you are officially a kunoichi." A huge laugh spread across Urza's face, and she almost squealed out like a schoolgirl because of his statement, but she stopped herself at the last moment so she wouldn't embarrass herself in front of everyone. "Thank you so much," she stammered, placing her hand on the metal plate and gripping it tightly before Urza replaced her regular armor with the kunoichi armor. She accepted the forehead protector from him when he loosened his grip on it. They called it the forehead protector, so she had a basic idea of where she should wear it. "Wear it with pride, Urza, like everyone before you did," Naruto said as he looked at Urza putting on her forehead protector. "My father would be proud." "He would be proud." "Of course he does." Urza laughed as she tied the cloth in a knot behind her head. "And what about you?" "Me?" Naruto chuckled quietly. "Fine, a little bit of this and that, but just because you become a kunoichi doesn't mean you can skip your daily training with me." "Got it." Urza frowned, and he laughed. "Anyway, good luck there. And don't worry about your performance. Show them hell." "Thank you, Naruto-sensei." End of chapter 10. Chapter 11. "You look so cool in those gears," Juvia said, and turned her head to look at Urza as she and other competitors for the first game were growing in a group in front of Mato the pumpkin. "Thank you, Juvia." Urza laughed as she placed her hand on her forehead protector and readjusted it, holding the metal plate with her fingers. Taking some of the information Naruto had given her during her training, she had added a few improvements to the kunoichi armor, one of them being a holster she wore around her right thigh. She also replaced the metal arm guards with a pair of chakra steel arm guards, which were lightweight but far more durable and suited her fighting style perfectly. She also wore black shinobi sandals, gauntlets, and a form-fitting net armor beneath her top. "You are very strong," Juvia continued as she looked at the taller young woman, "but I have no intention of losing here." "I wouldn't expect anything less from you, Juvia." Urza laughed, nodding her head. "Against someone like you, I'll have to go all out as well," Lion said as he glared at the two fairy tale witches. "But of course, it's for Juvia." The rain woman blushed furiously at her statement, but of course, she was more concerned about what the grey color would think than some sweet words from her rival. "I'll be eagerly awaiting your fight, Lion. Remember, I won't be holding back either," Urza said with a confident laugh before turning her attention back to Mato. "Anyway, this has been bothering me since the preliminaries." "What exactly are you?" "Exactly what I look like," the pumpkin said, clapping his hands together and tilting his head to the side. "I'm a pumpkin." Urza shrank back. He might just be one of the organizers in disguise, but she couldn't care less about the situation Jelil and his friends had told her about. "Excuse me for a moment." Narpading stepped forward. "We haven't yet been informed about which competition we're participating in today. In fact, the entire competition is being kept secret, but regardless of what it might be, having two competition partners gives Fairy Tail a huge advantage, right?" "Dad." Urza spoke up firmly before either of them could say anything. Having two companions on the same battlefield is more of a disadvantage than an advantage, especially with two people who have never fought as teammates before. She crossed her eyes over her chest before continuing, taking hostages, threatening targets, interrogating them for information. "You should know there are countless ways your opponents can use your friend to create their own advantage against you." "She's right." Rufus of Sabretooth nodded his head with a confident laugh. "I'm fine with it. This makes no difference to me." Jaeger nodded his head. "I think it's good too." Beth nodded her head. Kah. Narpading could only complain and decided to keep his mouth shut for the time being. After this, when the teams had finally gotten to the supports and secured their gate positions, Mato La Calabaza announced loudly. Now let's begin. Field, open. He pointed his finger at the sky, causing the crowd to erupt in cheers. In a flash of light, the arena transformed into a city, startling the spectators. In an instant, as the other competitors vanished, Urza found herself alone in the middle of the entire city, which at a single glance she understood was a perfect replica of Saffron. How are we supposed to play the game and look around here? Eva worried, looking around the city. Where will we hide? Beth was worried too. Narpading was unhappy, and Rufus remained calm with the same confident laugh. This is weird, how are we going to play the position and look like this? Jaeger commented, looking around. Each of you in the stadium. Please watch what's happening in the city through the Lacrima vision. Large scenes appeared before them, each focusing on one competitor. The 8 competitors don't know each other's whereabouts. The rule of this game is very simple. You will play both escape and search simultaneously. Find another competitor inside that city. You can use any kind of magic you like because you only need to land one hit, but a direct one. It doesn't matter if you are harmed or not. If a direct hit is made, a point is added to the attacker's score and taken from the victims. Damage is irrelevant, Chapati explained. Phew, what's he talking about? Natsu complained. Just a simple position and a twist, Naruto said thoughtfully, scratching his chin. While Urza could use her stealth ability very well, she would still have some trouble against those with tracking capabilities. Even in the past, shinobi who excelled at stealth could be easily discovered by those who specialized in tracking. Then suddenly, countless blurry aspects appeared on the street and then suddenly, the entire streets were then filled with reproductions of the 8 contestants. Urza said in surprise. Other contestants also shared her expression as they looked at the replays of themselves and their opponents. That's how each one is. Those are their reproductions. If you make a mistake and attack the reproductions, you'll lose a point. Chapati finished his explanation. They've all put on their faces, Lucy said nervously as she looked at the reproductions. Ugh, so many of them. Natsu grunted, feeling sick just from looking at the multitude of replicas. Seriously, this makes you dizzy just by looking at them. The gray color nodded his head in agreement. And suddenly, all 3 of them heard a small laugh and then their heads shook slightly as they looked at Naruto. Yuahaha. Then suddenly, he impressed everyone when he burst into laughter, slapping one hand over his face. He laughed so hard and so loudly that the others had to turn their heads to look at him strangely. Ah, come on, this is gold. He continued laughing, turning his head back. Is hell wrong about him? Gaji asked, annoyed as always, while staring at the strange man. His teammates could only look at Naruto, while Mira wasn't sure if she was truly amused by Naruto's odd behavior. Who the hell is that guy? The stinger asked in annoyance. The man, I hate his laughter. Urza called her teacher, right? Hibiki asked, and her comrade, the new N, nodded her head. What's wrong with him? Sharia asked as she frowned. Why are you laughing? Natsu and Gray asked at the same time. Ah, man, Naruto said after finally calming down. You know, I thought this game was a bit challenging, but they just made the whole thing so much easier for Urza. Their eyes widened in shock at his statement. This is a perfect playground for her. First, is he telling the truth? Makarov asked, looking at the laughing young woman. Yes, I think so. She nodded. She had no doubt that Urza was going to dominate the game. Alright then. Start. Vanish into thin air. Just like a black cat disappearing into the dark night. Chapati announced as the crowd went wild with excitement when an organizer struck the gong. Under this situation, you should start again from somewhere else after 10 seconds. You can start again as many times as you want within the time limit. The time limit is 30 minutes. The team that gets the most points will be team number 1. Instantly, each competitor began searching for their opponents while doing their best not to be discovered. The first minute had passed without any significant conflict, aside from a few mistakes made by other teams. However, when Juvia found Beth of Mermaid Talons, the battle officially began. Beth used her magic, firing multiple carrots at the Rain Woman, but each one passed harmlessly through her body. Then Jaeger appeared and tried to unleash a powerful attack on her, but Lion came to the rescue and froze him before he could make a move. You're welcome, my dear. Lion blew him a kiss, striking a dramatic pose while dodging Juvia's sharp blades of water. Hey. Hey. The gray-haired man growled as he glared angrily at Lion. The concentration on the competition, is it going to happen? Juvia wanted to use a more powerful spell, but before she could, Narpading appeared behind her and attacked all 3 of them, hitting Juvia with her drill much to her surprise, earning 3 points in the process. What is Urza doing? Natsu asked as he focused his attention on Urza, who was still wandering around aimlessly. Why isn't she making a move? Can you see that no one has found her yet? Lucy asked. But this doesn't